Great. So, okay. Okay, my friends, so just finishing the setup. So just bear with me, and we will be underway very shortly. Let's see. How are you doing, by the way? I hope you're well. And if the sound is okay, just let me know. And once I get... Mike, hello. It's nice to see you. Is the sound okay? Is that Rother? How are you doing? Fantastic. Oh, Cooper Clever 1972. Hello. No, not a problem. Thank you for asking your local store about that and leaving a comment behind. So that was really wonderful. So thank you. Okay. I think I woke up rather late today, so I'm running maybe a few minutes behind. So I know we said 6 a.m., but let's wait maybe a couple more minutes, and then we can begin in earnest. So just sit back and relax, and we can begin very shortly. So let's see. Peter Cushion, hello. Hi from Ireland. Hello, Erwin. Hello from Amsterdam. It's nice to see you. Wolfgratz, our dear friend. Hello. Good evening, etc. Yes. We are living in the age of the etc. Although perhaps we've always been living in the age of the etc. I'm not sure, but... All right. As I said, we're just, I'm running a little bit behind, so we're waiting maybe just another minute, maybe less, and then we can get started. So just hold on, and we will begin shortly. And I'm just setting up here, getting my drink. And let's see. Okay. Mike says the film was a nice break from the Twilight Zone marathon. Excellent. And I'm afraid I can't read the next name. I'm so sorry, but from Athens, excuse me. Hello. And Wolfgratz says, oh, by the way, according to my release, Irma Blund says Scream. Okay, interesting. So we'll get to that and other things. So, and Rider Rated 18. Hello. Wolfgratz Hyper. Oh, excuse me. I hear something. Will you? I'm so sorry. Please let me just take care of this. I hear something. Maybe it's my family in the other room. So I will take care of this very quickly, and I will be back in about maybe less than 2 minutes. So just pardon me for this. We're running a little bit behind. If someone does come in, just let people know that I will be back shortly. So just hold on for one moment, and I will be back shortly. So excuse me. Excuse me for this. Let me just turn the camera this way, and I will be back shortly. I apologize for this. My family calls, so I will be back in about 1 or 2 minutes. And we are back. Sorry about that, friends. Okay. I'm very sorry, my friends, but I hope you can forgive me. But now we return. So, with that, sorry about that brief little thing I had to do in the other room. But everything is okay now with my family, and they're still asleep, so we can begin in earnest. So let's begin. Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and hello. And we are now in a live stream where the topic of conversation is going to be this film, this very interesting film. This is the DVD I have of the 1967 film, James Bond film, which is You Only Live Twice, or Twice is the Only Way to Live. Today we will be talking about this very interesting James Bond film starring Sean Connery as James Bond 007 and a whole lot more. So please, won't you join me in the next hour or so, maybe even more, I'm not sure, and we will talk about this memorable work in the James Bond film series, You Only Live Twice. Now, preliminary comments before we get underway. The live chat is open, so please feel free to talk in the live chat, and we can talk about this film, and you can meet other film enthusiasts, and everyone is very, very nice. So just please feel free to talk in the live chat. And if you want to ask me questions or direct any specific comments to me, I'll do my best to address everything. But please note that today I want to focus my energy on You Only Live Twice. So if you have any comment or question about a film or a topic other than You Only Live Twice, then please understand that I will probably just very politely just ignore the comment, but then if you want to ask it to me again, you're free to do so in a video or something like that, because I usually try to get back to the comments through the in other videos. So, but today I want to focus on You Only Live Twice, and so let me do that. But as I say, you can always ask me questions on other videos if you're interested. So, and of course, the live chat is where people can enjoy and have a good time, I hope. You can have agreement, you can have disagreement. That's perfectly fine. I've been very fortunate. There hasn't been any issue or anything of that sort where I've had to be concerned about any unpleasantness, shall we say, that appears in live chats. So, because I trust you, I know that all of you will treat each other with respect, and you will listen. And even where topics turn into disagreement, I know you always disagree with a sense of mutual respect. You've treated me with a lot of respect and courtesy, and so I know I can rely upon you, as always, my dear friends, to do the same for others. So thank you so much in advance for this. And I should say also that I don't hold myself out to be an expert when it comes to this film or to the James Bond film franchise as a whole, or Ian Fleming's novels or anything of that sort. I'm not an expert. I'm not a scholar. I'm not I'm not an insider. So I don't have any claim to any inside information about these films. And so I come at this. Excuse me. I come at this as a fan who has seen this film a number of times, and actually ever since I was very young. I've known this film and others. So I'm going to speak to you on those terms. So if you have any questions for me, I probably won't be able to answer everything, but I know there are a number of people in the live chat who are very, very sharp and who know a lot walking James Bond encyclopedia level stuff. And so I'm sure a number of people in the live chat would be very happy to help with any questions you might have of a very specific nature regarding this film or other James Bond films or novels, etc. So, but I will do my best on my end. And let's see, I believe that's it. Oh yes, and as always with these things, spoilers. So this is a film from '67, but maybe there are people who haven't seen the film yet, and if that's the case, you don't have to stick around to this live chat or live stream, because I will be spoiling the heck out of this film. Because I have to, because that's part of the discussion. So if you haven't seen the film, and please, you can turn off this live stream, and this will be uploaded as a video after it's over. So you can always come back to the channel and you can check out the live stream as a video after the fact. So. But anyway, my friends, with that, oh, and also I will do my best to address the live chat. But as with many things, I am very poor when it comes to my ability to adapt and respond to technology. So maybe I might accidentally skip people. If I do, I really apologize. Anyway, I hope you're well. But I will do my best to address everyone. And cheers, and let's begin. But let's just see, in the live chat I see, oh, Rider Rated 18 is here, hello. Oh goodness, this is great. It's nice to see you. And Rod is here, hello Rod. Good day and respect from Scotland. Respect to you, Rod. Thank you, and thank you very much for your recent comments. Sean Connery, yes. So Sean Connery, there's a Sean Connery connection with a number of our discussions, Rod, you and I, in the comment section in some past videos. So thank you very much for that. And so thank you. It's nice to see you. And Mike, let's see. Yes, and. Okay, and Wolfgratz Kubrick Lover 1972 is Wolfgratz is talking about a particular part of the film with involving a little bit of dialogue that I didn't quite understand, but I'll get to that later as the live stream progresses. But okay, so let me begin with a general statement from my end about this film and how I came to know this film and what my general impression of the film is. And over the course of the film, I'll talk about specific aspects where I think it might be relevant to the conversation. So, as I say, I was born in 1979, which means that I was born after this film was released. And so, but James Bond films were, of course, still ongoing, and when I was born and growing up. And so, this film and others form the background, or not even the background. They form the direct foreground tapestry, if you will, of the James Bond movie experience that I enjoyed, and I tended to watch a lot of James Bond films on TV and on video, and so this was one of them. This is the film that is set in Japan, and in fact, I would say that, please correct me if I'm wrong, but none of the film takes place in England, right? I mean, there are shots on the submarine and the like in with M and Moneypenny, and so I think that counts as far as British territory. So I guess technically speaking, it does take place within certain bounds of British jurisdiction, but it doesn't take place in the geographic location of the UK, and so this is all or almost entirely set in Japan. And so this is this was always known to me growing up as this was the one that was set in Japan. And it had, therefore, a particular resonance for me because I am Japanese. I was born in Japan, but I did spend a lot of my childhood years outside of Japan because of my parents, my father's occupation. But we were Japanese, and I am Japanese, and so when I was growing up, I had a particular attachment to this because of that fact. And now looking at this film, I still have that attachment, although I do want to address in the course of this live stream certain aspects related to that, how I react to certain scenes or certain developments of plot that occur that touch upon this notion of depicting Japanese-ness, for lack of a better phrase. So it's pretty interesting from my point of view. I don't consider this film, if you want to have a highlight of my comments in that area, I don't consider this film at all to be insulting, or I don't consider it to be offensive. On the contrary, I consider it to be very fun, and it's a very uniquely placed James Bond film in my view. And as far as the Japanese depictions are concerned, I consider them to be very funny. In fact, I think they are quite hilarious in some aspects, especially towards the end or around the final third of the film, when you have James Bond turning Japanese. I mean, that's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen, actually. And when I was a little kid growing up, my mother and my father and I, but in particular my mother, we would just be laughing out loud, hysterics, when you'd have the scene of James Bond turning Japanese, and you have that whole scene with he's in the operating room, and Aki is directing the transformation. And what he says, oh, why don't you just dye the parts that show? And then she translates for him in Japanese, and actually, what does she say in Japanese? She says, 私たちだけの秘密だよ, and then they all laugh, ha 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 ha. Actually, I think what she says in Japanese is, this is just between you and me, girls, or this is our little secret. I think that's the direct translation of what she says in Japanese there. But and then we get the moment where he's fully Japanese and he emerges in the doorway there, and he's just this huge hulking guy. It's just the most absurd thing. And then when he is introduced to the island villagers on the island as the wife, not the wife, the husband of the Miyahama character, right, as part of the undercover nature of it, and she gets off the boat with him, and he's this huge hulking guy hunched over, and these people are just, and she introduces him to the other villagers as shujin desu, which means this is my husband, so shujin desu. And so my mother, whenever we would maybe just have fun with this film, we'd always say, oh, shujin desu. And so we'd sort of make fun of that line because it was so absurd from a Japanese point of view how this looks, because it's obviously one of the most poorly constructed undercover guises that has ever been had in, I think, a James Bond film. But we don't take offense to that. I think it's just hilarity ensuing in the world of James Bond. But that is an example of my interactions with this film growing up, and those feelings of hilarity, ensuing hilarity, continue. And that's, I think, part of the charm of the film for me, and it really fills me with a lot of feelings of nostalgia and warmth to this day. I do think there are aspects of the film that are very weird and quirky and just outlandish, and I think all over the place. And I think the pacing too is really quite something else indeed, and so I do want to talk about that as well. It makes for very engaging engaging watching, that's for sure. But this is this is a film that I enjoy immensely, and I love, and I still love to this day, and uncompromisingly love this film. And so it'll be my pleasure to be able to try in more specifics to share with you exactly why I feel that way. And I'll try to do so during the course of this live stream. But before we get to anything else, let me go to the live chat and see what you all are saying so far. And let's see. Rod says, I love Karen Dor in this movie. Yes, yes, you and me and many other people, my friend, as Helga Brandt, number 11, who actually, I would have loved to have seen her character in more of the scenes. I think when she was on screen, I think there was a lot of punch and a lot of electricity in the air, if you know what I mean. And she was dispatched, or her character was killed in a very quick way, in a very Blofeldian manner. So, yeah, she added a certain edge to the proceedings, that's for sure. Erwin says, watched it again, the film. You watched the film again yesterday with my brother, and we had a blast. Well done. Let's see. It's MBP. Hello, MBP. It's nice to see you. And Kubrick Lover 19. Oh, damn fool, Idealistic Crusader. It's nice to see you, my friend. Wolfgratz. I used to like Karen Dor, though she had the football score wrong on her commentary. We beat them 4-2, not by... Thank you very much. Stealthborn, hello, it's nice to see you. Great. And let's see. Rider 18... Rider Rated 18, excuse me. Sorry about that. Rider Rated 18 says, excuse me. Gosh, here we go. This was the first Connery Bond film I saw, having been a huge fan for Roger, who was my first introduction to Bond. Well done, my friend. Gosh, let's see. Sorry about this. I always do this. Okay. And you say, watch this many times on TV. ITV show it all the time here in the UK. Yes, and they did back in the day too, I think, when I was in the United Kingdom. So, well done. Well done indeed. And Kubrick Lover 1972 says, I love the song by Nancy Sinatra. Yes, and I love, let's get to that first because you've mentioned it, Kubrick Lover 1972. Oh, by the way, before I begin, so Damn Full Idealistic Crusader and Kubrick Lover 1972 have been very generous in allowing me to designate them as being moderators in the live chat, so thank you very much. Anyone else, if you're interested in being moderators for live chats, please let me know in a comment section, and I'd be very happy to designate you. I don't know if I can designate everyone, but I can designate a certain number. So if you're interested, please let me know, maybe in a comment, or you can contact me separately. But anyway, Damn Fool and Kubrick Lover, thank you very much as always. So Kubrick Lover, you mentioned the theme, Nancy Sinatra. Yes, this is one of the things I do want to get to. The music score and the theme song, I think, are top-notch. And we've had, obviously, for the most part, we've had a James Bond cinematic landscape that has been supported with such grace and beauty and style, as I say, for the majority, by the music landscape of the one, the only John Barry. And John Barry has been there kind of almost from the first film, obviously, and then it really gets into high gear John Barry style in From Russia with Love onwards, of course. And then now we have, and then Goldfinger, and then Thunderball, and then we have You Only Live Twice. And so we've already gotten a sense of the John Barry-ness of the James Bond world. But I would suggest that this James Bond film score, You Only Live Twice score, is one of Barry's best. And I love it because of its mix of style and it has it all of Barry's scores do this, but I love how he interweaves the romantic theme with the action themes. And that's something that I'm missing a lot in some of the more recent James Bond fare. But the action themes are really exciting. Take, for example, the themes that happen when Aki and Bond are visiting the Kobe docks, and the fight ensues between Bond on one hand and the dock workers on the other. And that's one of the best moments of the score. And then the camera goes back up on the helicopter there, and we have that really weird, unique shot of a fight sequence in a Bond film. So it's a wonderful, wonderful time, and augmented really nicely by the music there. And so I personally find it to be one of my favorite John Barry scores, and the song too. My goodness, this is one of my favorites. I like it because it's been I always like the James Bond theme songs that always take a step back and take their time and are in the major key. And so it has a nice, I don't know, I'm not a musicologist, but from my very limited musicology vocabulary, I would say this song has a major key positive nature to it. Thunderball was a boisterous song in the minor key. Goldfinger, I think, too. And From Russia with Love was a slow ballads type of song, which occurred at the with the From Russia with Love film, of course. But here we have a lovely, slow, mellifluous song, and it just fills the screen quite immediately, and I love that very much. I really do. This is, I think, one of my favorite themes, songs in all of James Bond, and I think it's clever, and it's evocative, and it, I think, strikes the right note in terms of the expression of the exotic and the romantic. And that's exactly what I think the film's approach is. It's like, I think for many people who are watching this outside of Japan, this is looking at this part of the world with a sense of the exotic and the romantic. And I think the song captures it quite perfectly. If I had to just pick one thing, it would be the little bit at the very beginning of the song, which is the little thing where it has it's not quite I forget what the specific term is, but it has that dun dun dun, that kind of tune, which is usually associated with Asians and and that, like, it's not chopsticks per se, but there's a little bit of a ta-dun-dun-dun, which is a sort of musical motif style, often used to describe or to give a sense of what might be deemed to be the quote-unquote Asian atmosphere. I'm not really a big fan of that, to be perfectly honest. And that kind of musical motif, occurs not just in Bond, but in actually many other areas. Even in Japan too. Sometimes you hear it in games and the like. I personally am not a big fan of that myself, but those little minor points aside, I think it's a really great, one of the best theme songs. And I love Nancy Sinatra. In the older DVD when they came out, they had at the time the new making of documentaries for each of the films, and they had a documentary on the music, and they had a little bit with Nancy. They're talking about really briefly about the song "You Only Live Twice." And they said, and they had a clip of Nancy Sinatra, and she, I think, very boldly says, they wanted my sound, and it's my favorite of the Bond songs. I think I would think that if I didn't do it. And so she says it's the one that she did happens to be her favorite. So I think that's a really interesting interview comment. But she has a point. It's really one of the best. And when we hear, excuse me, when we remember, when we listen to some of the other possibilities of what the song could have been, I think we realize that we really got something quite golden, right? The other theme song, or the other possibility of the theme. Have you heard this? It's great. The unused song. I love the lyric. You only live twice, no more, just twice. And each time you live, you play with dice, or something like that. I thought that. I'm glad they didn't go with that one. Although I do like that song, the unused "You Only Live Twice" version. But yeah, it's a great soundtrack, and it has some wonderful moments. One of my favorite musical moments is I think it occurs twice, and once is when James Bond is chasing Henderson's assassin at night, and it goes when he's chasing him in the dark yard there. It has the musical cue. It goes da 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 da, and of course it occurs again later when Blofeld returns in his little egg-shaped monorail, and it just says da 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 da, and it goes into a close-up of Blofeld using a key. And that's a wonderful thing, and this introduces, of course, I'm off topic here already, but this introduces, of course, the idea of Blofeld and keys. And I mentioned this before in, I think, a previous live stream, but the pen is mightier than the sword, or in the case of Blofeld, the key is mightier than the pistol. So in any event, great soundtrack, and wonderful comments from Cooper Glover 72 and others. Well done. Thank you very much. And Erwin agrees. Yes, great song, great soundtrack. Ryder rated 18 also agrees. It's a great Bond theme. I agree. And the lyric is so clever too. The Nancy Sinatra song. It's really clever. And that's one of the songs. One of the things I like to do is I like to listen to covers of the various songs. And one of the great covers, I think Bjork did a great cover of "You Only Live Twice." And really electrifying. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the song itself, the underlying song, is itself electrifying. So let's see. Let's keep on going here. Wonderful. And Cooper Clever 1972 says Sean Connery said this was going to be his last film. Yes. Thank you very much. Let's talk about this. So Sean Connery in this film, James Bond, as James Bond 007, one of course, the great aspects of James Bond is the acting, or the actors that appear as Bond. And here we have Sean Connery, who arguably, I think, for a lot of people, is the definitive Bond. I think very reasonably so, because he had been, up to now, been the only Bond. I mean, in terms of this series of films, by the way, the Harry Saltzman, Albert Broccoli series, and for many even now, he is the Bond, the definitive Bond. But this performance that he gives in "You Only Live Twice," I think, is really. It's really a one-of-a-kind performance. It's one of those performances where you can tell that he is just kind of going along with the ride, and he's not necessarily... there are some moments of, I think, genuine emotion. For instance, when Aki dies with that poison down the string there. When she's saying and he's helpless to help her, and she dies with him there, and he has that moment where I think he's really involved. And there are some other moments like that, but I think for the most part, he's often described in this film by critics and fans as being sort of, you can already tell that he's fed up and he wants to just get on with it. And so, I mean, do you see it on screen? Perhaps, I think. But I think what it also is suggestive of is the fact that this film and the surrounding periphery, everything that happens around Bond is just so elevated and heightened. It's like he's in the center of this storm of stuff that's going on, that it becomes almost unnoticeable, or maybe not unnoticeable. It becomes to the point where it's almost like it's almost like how do I explain it? I was going to say that it's almost like his performance doesn't matter, but I don't mean it that way. His performance does matter, but what I was trying to say is that I think any type of indication of lethargy or any type of indication of tiredness or fed upness that might be shown in the demeanor or manner of Sean Connery's performance as James Bond in You Only Live Twice is not distracting, because of the fact that everything around him, all the set pieces and the plot and everything, is so heightened that I think it still works. And so had the film been more focused on the character of Bond, and had the film's plot been one where it relied quite directly and quite heavily on the nuances of Bond's character, then I think this film and the performance, the level of performance of Sean Connery, I think might have been a different story. But for now, we have a film that I would suggest is not necessarily dependent on the inner workings of Bond's character, shall we say. I mean, it is about a story that is about James Bond, don't get me wrong, but I would say that there are other stories that maybe have a stronger tenor to them in, as far as James Bond and a focus on his character. I would suggest maybe a film like On Her Majesty's Secret Service comes to mind, or even Casino Royale, I think, comes to mind, or License to Kill comes to mind. But here, I would say that it doesn't. It's a story that doesn't have to go there, because we already have a lot of other things on the menu that are that make us feel full and satisfied. And so that's how I feel about that. There are still some really classic Connery moments, though, don't get me wrong. The way that when he's chasing Aki and they go into that underground, I guess it's the underground rail station of some sort. I'm not sure if it's abandoned or not, but he goes down and he walks. You notice how he runs down the steps. He does that little sideways running down the steps, and so I like that. I always like to think, whenever I'm walking down some steps and I'm in a bit of a hurry, sometimes I'll do the sideways trot down the steps and I have Sean Connery in that particular scene in mind. Incidentally, too, I love his shoes in that particular moment. It's the two-tone shoes, the white and black. I think that it's the shoes that he takes off the assassin in order to assume the disguise of the assassin, in order to infiltrate what ends up becoming Osato chemicals. And so he takes off the shoes, and the shoes are two-tone, which is a really interesting choice. I think for anyone who is in sort of the old school men's fashion, a la Terence Young and Savile Row and all this, I think the general rule is that two-tone shoes aren't they are kind of a fashion faux pas when it comes to suits and wearing suits in the city, I think. And so to have something, I know it's as I acknowledge, these were the shoes I understand that the assassin wore, and so he took the shoes as well as the coat and the hat there. But I love that little, as I say, I love that little run down the steps. And I mentioned a little bit about the Japaneseness when he turns Japanese. There are some moments too that are quite hilarious when he's walking in Japan and he's speaking Japanese. Oh, that's another thing too. Wow, what an interesting thing about. I mean, if I would have loved to have taken that class at Cambridge, right? He took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge, which is which is hilarious to me, obviously, because it's a ludicrous idea, obviously, to have all quote unquote Oriental languages lumped into this one section, because as you know, the languages are very, very distinct from each other. And so for English language speakers, it's like saying, I took a first in European languages, which is, right, as you know, it's an absurd thing because, well, I guess it might not necessarily be that absurd in the sense of European languages, because I suppose one might be able to get a sense of certain similarities of grammar, order and structure. And indeed, perhaps one might see, if one is a student of, say, the language of Japanese and the language of Korean, one might notice that there is an almost identical grammatical structure when it comes to construction of sentences, etc. But I think, be that as it may, still, my point is that I think his language skills, as shown in the film, are also another thing that really was cause for a lot of laughing in my household growing up, because it was just one of the things. It was absolutely ludicrous. His Japanese is ludicrous. What does he say? He says when he's trying to find the sumo wrestler Sada no Yama, and which is apparently one of his contacts, which is a great idea, by the way. I remember my dad, in particular, would always light up when that scene comes and says, "This is your ticket," and he's trying to find Sadayo, and he says it in a really wonderful Conneryan way. He says, "Sada no Yama." I love that, Sada no Yama. And he says, "Domo arigato," which is, you wouldn't quite, I think you'd say, "Arigato gozaimasu." He forgot the gozaimasu, which is, I think, a little bit of a faux pas. So he just says, "Domo arigato." That's an interesting little thing there. And I love how he meets Sada no Yama, and he's using all this Japanese, but when he meets him, Sada no Yama says, "This is your ticket," so he goes right into English. So that's an interesting little bit of his use of Japanese there, which is very limited. But that's not the point of the film, I understand. But it's one of those things too where it's I think also the way that the Bond film itself is constructed and the Bond character is portrayed in this story, I think, gives little room for character development of the kind that, as I say, we will see maybe in other films more pronouncedly, in a more pronounced manner. And in fact, on that note, I would say that this film provides, I think, a lot of quirky elements to it that are very, I think, maybe a little bit of a departure when it comes to the depiction of the James Bond character. For example, and I think this is one of the things that adds to the charm of the film. For example, with the whole thing about of Bond using Japanese, it's a little bit, and he goes and he's the code word that's used, "I love you." I always found that to be a weird thing. I always thought that code words in spy speak were meant to be these innocent phrases that were just throwaway lines that weren't meant to be conspicuous. But if you have this huge guy who is sticking out like a sore thumb in this crowd of Japanese people, and he says to some random young woman, "I love you," I mean, that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, and so that's really odd. And so I always thought that to be a really odd code language, very much in contradiction to the other types of code language keys that we saw in other films. The lighter and all this. So that's one thing. And in fact, the whole thing about spies and being in disguise and just being clandestine, I think, is just thrown out the window, right? With this film. James Bond is now a superhero. Almost everyone knows James Bond, and that's the whole premise for the fact that he must be killed off at the very beginning in order to get all of his enemies off his back, which is then suggestive of the fact that James Bond is this huge known figure. And if that's the case, I think that's very much anathema, or not anathema. It goes against the it goes against the notion of him being this undercover spy to begin with. I mean, if he's this huge superhero now, then he's not a spy, and so, or he can't be a spy because everyone knows him. And so it turns into this huge James Bond equals superhero type of mode, which is fine with me. I think it's a really charming aspect to it, but it means therefore that some of the spy elements are thrown out the window. He's apparently the only one who uses a Walther PPK, right? It's not standard issue for the British Secret Service. It's not like every 00 agent uses it, right? When Blofeld shows the picture of the Walther, and Osato very proudly says, you know, he's able to identify. There's only one man we know uses this gun, James Bond. Well, that's not. I always thought that wasn't the case, right? It was standard issue by Q to all the to field agents, and so. So it's not just 007, but it's, you know, all the 00s, I would assume. So that's an indication of James Bond being the superhero of this age, and that's similar sort of thing. So I think the portrayal of Bond, I think, goes a long way into turning Bond into this, into this can't do wrong superhero status. But that's further elevated, as I say, by the things that happen around him, which are just a whirlwind of events and plot-driven mechanics that are just out of this world, literally. So, and so there's a lot of charm. There's a lot of I think charisma that he gives, and still I think he has a great physicality to him. I mean, I would direct your attention to that first fight in the Osato office at night. With the hulking thug there, I think that's for my money, that's probably the best fight in the film. Because it has that huge, the use of the sounds and the furniture, and then the sword is used, and Connery's down on the ground, rolling to one side, trying to avoid the blade swipe, and he has the thing at the end with I don't know, Siamese vodka. I've never had Siamese vodka, so I'm not sure what the taste is, but. I think that's one of the best fights, or that's probably for me the best fight of the film, because it's so, and I think it makes the Hans fight at the end a little bit. I always thought that fight at the end was a little bit, I guess, a little bit anticlimactic, because they're fighting, and Hans is obviously a really big guy. But then at the end, he's on the little bridge, and all Bond has to do is just duck, and Hans does that little da 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 boom, and then Han falls. He falls into the water, and he falls into the piranha fish, and then Bond says bon appetit, right? But I always wondered about that. How did Bond know to say bon appetit, which assumes that he knew that what was in the pool to begin with were some man-eating piranhas or some kind of man-eating fish? How would he know that? If he hasn't been into the room? This is the first time, I'm assuming, he's been in Blofeld's lair. But he knew automatically that when Hans fell in there and he didn't drown, he was eaten. So I guess we weren't privy as viewers to see. Maybe there's some shots that Bond saw that we didn't see. Maybe he actually saw the fish actually eating the flesh of Hans. I don't know. But anyway, he says bon appetit, and he goes there and does the final thing with the key, right? And of course he can't open the key, right? and just holds on for an agonizingly long time. He's just trying to open the freaking key thing, and he can't do it. And the John Barry score is happening, and the thing is trying to open up, and it's about to eat. And World War III, we're on the brink of World War and everything like that, and he just can't open. And I love there's a little bit of Sean Connery physicality when he's trying to open, and you can see that he does a little jiggle with his body, so he's kind of going like that, and then he just and then finally he opens it with 5 seconds to spare, and then he's able to push the button, and the things explodes. And I love the little quick shot of his face, and it has a little smile on his face. He's like, yeah, I know, I did it, right? And that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. I love that. Those are those moments for me are the ones that really count when it comes to performances in James Bond. So that little jiggle, with the struggle with the key, I think is one of the great moments there. Anyway, so Sean Connery, and and James Bond, and the little details of performance that I think really shine. Yes, but anyway, thank you very much, Cooper Glover. Erwin says, the views on women in You Only Live Twice are questionable, to say the least. Yes, it's a film from the 60s, and also it's a James Bond film from the 60s. So, you just go with it or you don't. And so but they are quite fun, right? When Tiger says, what does he say? He says, he explains what he describes as being the rules of living here in Japan. And one of the rules is, in Japan, men come first, women come second, which is right. I think that is probably that's probably a very shocking line to a lot of people nowadays. But it's in a James Bond film, and it's between two men, Tiger and Bond, who are very, very masculine, to say the least. And that's an example, of course, of the sort of patriarchal notions that are being represented here. But I mean, right, in terms of women in James Bond, I mean, it's always been a quote unquote questionable thing. But this is a James Bond film, and so it's I mean, it's quite laughable in many aspects. You're absolutely right, though, Erwin. And let's see here. Cooper Clever 1972 asks me, do a lot of Japanese people like this film, or would you not know? I don't know. I mean, I can only go with anecdotal evidence, but all the Japanese people I've met that I've talked with about this film, they like this film very much, and they never see anything. They have similar reactions that I and my parents did, or my parents did when they were alive, and they just laugh out loud at the ludicrousness of some of the Japanese portrayals. But apart from that, I think they really enjoy it. And I can tell you also anecdotally from my parents as well. Like I always saw it as a bit of pride when we had Japanese actors like Akiko Wakabayashi or Tetsuro Tamba, who plays Tiger Tanaka, and Miyahama, who has the name Kissy. The name is never spoken on camera, of course, but that's the name that's given in the credits, and it's derived from the original source, obviously. I've never met anyone in Japan named Kissy, so I don't think that would be, I'm not sure if that, I know her name is Suzuki, Kissy Suzuki. Suzuki is a very common family name, so it's maybe akin to something like Smith or Jones, perhaps. But in any event, the appearance of these actors, and also Shimada, Teru Shimada, who plays Osato, and also the appearance of Sadanoyama and others. I think these are things that when I see them, I can note that my parents, I think, had a little sense of happiness and pride, as well as seeing these shots of Japan and Tokyo and other parts of Japan, and they'd be really, I think one of the first opening shots of the montage at the very beginning of the film when Bond arrives in Tokyo is like Asahi Biru. There's a shot of the Asahi Beer a light logo that's flashing in the nightscape of Tokyo. And I remember when my mom and my dad used to watch the film, they just light up. Oh yeah, I remember that, or yeah, that's familiar, and that sort of thing. So there is a real sense of I think happiness and pride when it comes to scenes like that. Is it meant to be the definitive depiction of Japan? Of course not, and everyone understands this, and so I think it's I don't see any dislike of the film. I've certainly never heard specifically of anyone, or maybe there have been, but I just haven't caught wind of it. But anyone who's been really overly offended by the film in Japan, actually, it's really interesting. I think my experience in terms of people who might feel offended by the film tend to be like, I don't know, maybe people outside of Japan who might feel like it's culturally insensitive to portray Japanese people in certain ways that the film employs. And so, as I indicated at the very outset, I don't see it as I'm not personally offended by it at all. I mean, is it completely free from any sense of questionable aspect? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is, for me personally, it doesn't bother me to that extent. So, I mean, it's laughable. And of course, I have this reaction of laughing because there is something inherently absurd about it. But, as long as there's no kind of, I guess the one thing that I would feel, I have to admit, sometimes I go a little bit back and forth on, is not in the film necessarily, but I guess it is kind of in the film. One of the things I'm personally, I'm a bit, there's some, I admit sometimes sometimes, a lot of times I really don't like it, is when people usually try to describe Japanese people speaking English in a way that they omit articles, so like and the, and so when people, and I know people don't, I mean, I'd like to think that people don't have a sense of ill will when they're describing the way Japanese people speak English, or the way they think or they perceive Japanese people speaking English, like me kamikaze pilot or something. That was one of the comments that I think Louis Gilbert or someone gave when they were being interviewed in the documentary. And they were talking also about some of the actors, and she it feels and that's sort of that's the sort of thing that I'm actually a little bit personally wary of, and whenever I admit feeling a little bit cringy whenever I hear someone speak in that sort of way, but I never, I don't go to the point where I feel totally offended by that. But it does. That's something that I personally have. But and it's not exclusive to this film too. It's something that happens, I think, in a lot of realms. It happens to me directly too, every now and again, when it comes to this notion of how people perceive Japanese people in general to speak English. And that sort of thing. And I always try to think, and if someone does have ill will in using that kind of description when describing Japanese people trying to speak English, I always think to myself, all right, you try to speak a language that's not your own native language, and see how it sounds, right? So, and so that's the kind of that's I think where that is, and especially too because the people who speak English here is, I think, like, they speak English very well. I mean, they speak English very well, and I'm talking about the actors who are obviously their own. It's their own voice. So Akiko Wakabayashi, for instance, who plays Aki, that's her own voice, I think, and she's speaking English, I think, very perfectly. And also what is it? Shimada, who plays Osato, I think that's his own voice too, and I think he's also speaking grammatically perfectly. So I'm very much I'm pleased. I'm very happy with that, and so I like seeing those depictions very much so when that happens. I mean, I think it's always a tricky thing when it comes to that kind of a language depiction, and when I hear I mean, there are characters in films and TV series here in Japan. You have foreign characters or non-Japanese characters speaking Japanese, and sometimes they're really fluent and it works very well. Other times they're not fluent at all, and I think the non-fluency is sometimes on purpose in order to add something to the character. And other times it's this odd thing, it's this kind of odd throwaway thing as well, where I don't know if there's any thought that went into trying to create this sense of accuracy. And so I always think that the Sean Connery Japanese here is in that latter category, because I don't sense it being in any way an effort to try to capture a sense of accuracy. There's also a moment when Blofeld later uses Japanese, and it's completely off. That's not the sort of Japanese that one would use if one is trying to use quote-unquote appropriate modes of grammar and language construction in Japanese. So it's completely off. And so that's for me, that's a kind of interesting use of language. But I'm so happy that the use of language in the other direction of the Japanese characters using English, I'm so happy that it was done in a way, at least in the film, that was showing that they aren't using the stilted, non-article use English, right? Which is, I think, a very stereotypical manner that is often a shorthand used when you have Japanese characters on screen, which it's very tiring when you see it a lot. And so I'm saying also that it does happen in some of the documentaries as well. And I don't think there's any ill will, as I say, indicated there, but it is something that is not, it doesn't, how should I put it? It's not something that, it's, how should I put it? It is something that it doesn't go unnoticed. Let me just put it that way. And so let me just end the conversation there. But as I say, with that, I never feel any sense of offense, and I think there is also a kind of real love letter type of feel when it comes to the depictions of Japan and the like. I mean, there's still shots of what's the word? The rickshaw, the man, and the carriage and running. And I don't. There are no rickshaws now, but I think in the late '60s they were still around. I think, and we see women dressed in kimono out in the city, and that, I think, perhaps was more prominent in the late '60s than it is now. But we still have that. I mean, it's not uncommon to see people wearing that kind of traditional Japanese dress, even in the city. So that is, I think, really. And then we see sumo played out as well, which I think is really exciting. I'm not a big fan of sumo myself, but my father was, and so that was a lot of fun. And there's another thing too with Henderson, the Charles Gray character, and he says he has that wonderful odd mix of what he calls, he won't go completely Japanese. That's what he says, and so he has the thing with the Western style and the Japanese style. But actually, I think that's a very typical blend of styles even in modern Japan, in modern Tokyo anyway. You'd usually have a Western, what we call a Western style living space, and then we'd have one room in an apartment that would be allocated as being the washitsu, which is the Japanese word for the Japanese room, which is one room that has a tatami floor, which is the type of the bamboo based matting, and it would usually have a sliding door as well. And so there's usually the construction that is very similar to Henderson's layout, actually, of a Japanese style space, but maybe with Western rooms, or maybe here in the modern context, the reverse, Western style space with open doors and sort of maybe wooden floors or non-carpeted floors, and then we'd have one room that would be the washitsu. So in fact, there are a lot of things that are, I would suggest, very accurate in terms of depictions of Japaneseness. So yeah. So anyway, I'm dominating the conversation very rudely here. So let me move on to the live chat and go from there. Neil, hello, Neil, my friend. It's nice to see you. And excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Let me just clear my. Let's see. As Zyrother says, one of the only Bond films to take place in one country, unless you count the Hong Kong part. Yes, yeah, I described as being one of the only ones that takes place, that doesn't have a scene that takes place in the geographical location of Great Britain. Yeah. Yeah. And Wolfgrat says, we were briefly in Hong Kong with Tsai Chi, and I think it may have been Anthony Ainley as a cop. Yes. Damn fool, says Sean Connery threw in the towel after the Japanese paparazzi followed him, yes, into the toilet. The level of scrutiny he was under in Japan was insane. Yes, yes. This is mentioned in the documentary, and there's a clip, right, of Albert Broccoli, right, trying to just reason with the paparazzi here, which is insane. And in fact, the Japanese paparazzi are really aggressive. Really, even now, I mean, paparazzi, I think in general are very aggressive, but Japanese paparazzi are, yeah. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And there's a moment in the documentary, right, where Cubby Broccoli saying, now he hasn't had the luxury of having a little lunch. He hasn't had a little lunch, or something like that, right? So, yeah, I can just imagine. I mean, there's it's not James Bond, but I think a similar type of vibe, I suppose, was there when the Beatles visited Japan. Although the Beatles, I think, had that wherever they went. But yeah, I think I understand too from other sources as well that the level of media scrutiny on Sean Connery was just unbearable. And so yeah, well said. And Wolfgratz corrects the, yes, Tsai Chin, yes. And let's see. Yes, damn fool idealistic crusader says most important, yes. Sake 98.4 degrees Fahrenheit, yes. I like sake. So if you want any Japanese, yeah, right, he says sake. I love that. That's great. And I love the voice actor who voices Tiger in English. He has a really commanding voice too. It's really wonderful. Although every now and again he says, instead of saying Ningpo, the boat, the ship Ningpo, that voice actor who voices Tiger's English dialogue, he'll say Ningpu. If you listen very carefully, he says, "Oh, something the Ningpu." It's like, what? But anyway, yeah, it's great. Actually, I should just mention here while I'm on the topic. So Tetsuro Tamba as Tiger, that is so. Tetsuro Tamba is one of the most recognizable actors. He has this kind of cult status, and he's when that's another thing too. My dad, whenever Tamba would be on the screen, he'd just light up, and he'd just be so cool. And so to have Tamba in this huge role, granted it's a side character, and we kind of see him in action, although we don't. Tiger has this way of being very like under the radar. He kind of does stuff, but we don't know he's doing stuff, and I think that's part of the thing. His thing is being in terms of what is the phrase, Japanese Secret Service, and so. Yeah, and he has to guard his identity. So we don't see him in action directly, but you can tell that he's really pulling the strings in a lot of ways, and I think his presence is just undeniably so cool, and it's great to see him. And also, the same is true for Akiko Wakabayashi and Miyahama. Miyahama she's I think she's still in TV commercials here in Japan right now, and it's right, very, very popular, and Akiko Wakabayashi too. As I say, I love the fact that we actually hear her voice, and she is speaking with Bond, and it's a lot of her interactions with Bond that I think is really one of the big strengths of the film. In fact, the relationship between Aki and Bond is one of the best ones. And so when Aki gets killed, I think about 2/3 of the way in, it's a really sad moment, really, really sad, and then it transitions over into the Miyahama character, who is who does a lot of this thing with this is business, and I shall sleep, that's your bed, I shall sleep over there. And so she's obviously doesn't want to go too much into method acting when it comes to the marriage between her and the Japanese new husband, right? But there isn't enough time, I think, to really develop her character as much as we spent time with Aki. Although I do like what we get when we get some of the action scenes and her swimming and escaping and trying to get help and evading the helicopter. That's an amazing scene where it's just her versus the helicopter. Wow, and amazing stuff. But yeah, so to see these actors and others in this film like this, I think there's as I mentioned before, there's a real delight there, and I'm so thrilled when that happens. And Tiger is such a cool character. He is such a cool character as well. Although you have to think, okay, Tiger, and he's got this huge thing with the ninja school and everything like that, and the modern day ninjas and the cigarettes and everything like that, which is great. That's a great moment, by the way, and I'll get to that later when I talk about Blofeld. Right, his sort of base of operations before they infiltrate the island for the final phase of the investigation, his base was essentially infiltrated by the enemy twice, right? First time was the assassin who came in at night and did that really like quite impractical way to try to kill someone in terms of the poison. If you really wanted to kill him, just go in there and like boom, but no, he had to do the thing with the poison down the little. Okay, all right, okay, that's fine. But that's first example of being infiltrated by the enemy. The second example is, of course, when Bond is practicing the final 2 days of the training, right? And he's practicing out there, and he gets beaten in the practice, and he says "umai," and then the guy has a little knife and da 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 ba ba, and then he stabs him, and then the guy goes right, and you killed him, yeah, and Tiger goes, this isn't one of our men. Who is this guy? So that's like really, really shoddy security, Tiger. Come on, But yeah. So there's a little bit. I don't know what the security tactics were when it comes to safeguarding that particular base. But oh well. It provided for some good entertainment, and I think these were the final moments, right? My understanding is those two assassins were Osato men. They weren't Blofeld men. They were Osato men, right? Because these were the scenes that occurred after Helga was killed in the piranha pool. And this is Blofeld's tactic as well, to try to scare Osato into action. He says, "Kill Bond now!" And then Osato is in the distance there with a wonderful shot. It's out in the distance, and he's there, Osato, on the top of the steps. He's tiny figure, and he's like, "Yes, number one, yes," and he just runs up there. And so I understand that this was Osato's final attempt at assassinating Bond. And so that's one. And Osato, too, what a great character, although he does get relegated to minor villain status in the second half of the film. But I thought the first half, where he is, he is there and he's behind that huge, I guess, Ken Adams set inspired desk, which is itself, I mean, if you're a villain, you need a huge desk like that, and X-ray stuff and that sort of thing. I think that's another thing too. What were the great villain desks of Bond films? Maybe Zorin might be up there, but I think Osato is probably number one. I don't know, but that desk he has is so villainous and so perfect, and that discussion that he has with Mr. Fisher, and a very, very quick deal that he wants to have bulk supply of monosodium glutamate and ascorbic acid, and do you want a license to manufacture? Of course. Okay. We'll just arrange the payment and thank you very much. Have a nice day. That sounds like a big deal, and he was able to manage the transaction with a lot of swiftness. I've never. What does he say? You should having a glass of champagne in the morning adds a sparkle to the day, I think. But I've never done that. But I thought that Osato was really cool and really villainous. And then it just kind of went downhill for him afterwards, because he was unable to assassinate Bond, and then Helga too was unable to assassinate Bond. Although you have to think, my goodness, if you really want to kill Bond, right? If you really want to kill Bond, you got to think of better methods. You really have to think of better methods. Okay, this first part of Osato in the office, and he's got, oh, thank you, goodbye, and he goes to, and he's like, kill him, and then Helga goes on the phone in this villainous way, and before that too, I'm sorry, the Osato office, after the nighttime fight, and he goes there the next morning, I think it is, and he's 3 minutes early, and so he goes and he's posing as Mr. Fisher, and he's walking around, and the camera, that camera in the is following him, and he notices it, and it moves, and every time it moves, the typewriter noise happens. So it's like the typewriter noise and the movement of the character the camera are in sync. So the typewriter noise gives it away that he's being surveyed, and so it's I found that very interesting. But what was I? So yes, Osato and Number 11. So Helga and their attempts at trying to kill Bond. So they really want to kill him. So how do they do it first? Okay, they have him in the office. They know he is a target. They need him eliminated. So what do? Instead of doing it in the office, outside of public view, instead of doing it in the elevator or something like that, what do? They wait until he walks outside of the building, and he's walking very nonchalantly away, and we can see in the distance some other people, so there are witnesses there. So they wait until he's outdoors in a place where there could be witnesses, to have some armed men with machine guns aim and about to shoot him in this public place. Just in the nick of time, of course, Aki drives in and saves the day, and does her thing with the car, which is a great thing too. Aki and the car, that's great stuff. But yeah, that is a very impractical way to kill someone that you really want to kill. And the same thing too with Helga, who's a great villain, by the way. I thought she had that a Fiona Volpe vibe to it, with the red hair and the and her chemistry, I thought, with Sean Connery was really, really quite great. But she was there, of course, I think very briefly, and then she was killed. But before then, she herself tried to kill Bond in her private quarters on the Ningpo, and she and Bond, they have a little bit of a moment, and she discovers, it's confirmed that he is a spy, although even now he is still under the ruse, if you will, or the story, which is that he is an industrial spy, not a British spy, which is interesting too, because if he's claiming to be an industrial spy, then why would he say, as he essentially destroys the dress Helga by ripping it or cutting it in straps with the knife. And if I were Helga, I would, if even if I had a lot of fun in the sort of love making, I would still demand that he pay for the dress because he essentially destroyed the dress. But anyway, what does he say as it's that sort of that moment before and fades out to something. He says, "The things I do for England," right? Which I understand is a line that was supposed to be had in the exchange between Bond and Fiona Volpe in Thunderball, but it's carried over into this film. But it doesn't make sense actually, because if he's but that implies that he is working for England, and if so, that is sort of an implicit acknowledgement or confession, if you will, that he is in fact working for the British government. So I don't know, what's his story? Is he working for a private power, which is what I thought the whole story was, or is he working on his own in terms of industrial secrets and things like that? But it was never meant, I think, as far as his cover story, that he was working for the British government. So I always thought that line to be a little bit out of place. But anyway, I understand it's supposed to be a throwaway line and leading to other things. And then, right, but going back to Helga, if she really wanted to kill Bond, she could have done it there, and she was on the Ningpo, and there were other men there, and they had him. He was fighting on the Kobe docks, and he got clobbered and he got knocked out, and so they had him there. And what did they decide to do? They decided to wake him up, and that sort of thing, and then have him on the plane, and then trap him, and then throw the little smoke bomb on the plane, and then trap him with the wooden table. And then Helga does her thing with the wonderful back screen projection and her parachute. And then the plane, but he manages to escape, and that's a wonderful. I mean, talk about the expenditure of resources when it comes to trying to kill someone, right? I mean, the plane and this whole gadget with the makeup that turns into a smoke bomb and all this stuff. You could have used the Kobe dock workers, my friend, and just handled it in very low cost. But oh well. It makes for great entertainment, right? And so no wonder Blofeld was peeved, right? I mean, kill Bond now, and that was his that was the order: kill Bond now. But no, we've got to wait until it's the plane, it's the right moment, and all that. But I suppose, even Blofeld was himself remiss when it comes to this sort of thing. He had his moment to kill Bond, and he really wanted to kill Bond, and he's thinking, I will, personally, right, I will enjoy killing you myself, that sort of thing. And when he has him there, and he's about to kill him, oh no, what does he do? He decides to shoot Osato. He does the thing with the gun. And then he takes Bond outside into the whole mess of the ninjas and fighting and explosions, and he waits until this moment to try to kill Bond. He says, "Goodbye, Mr. Bond," and it stretches out so long. He could have shot him right there. Oh no! But just in time for Tiger and the throwing star to have his way with him. But so maybe Blofeld had a little thing with that as well. Anyway, so that's one of the great things about Bond films is the wonderful setup, the elaborate setup that is in fact very ludicrous and quite impractical. That's the beautiful thing of films like You Only Live Twice, is this setup, because they are the memorable parts of the film, right? Very, very memorable indeed. So, but kudos to the Japanese actors here. And I spoke a little bit about the villains, but I'll get to that in a moment. But I'll hold on that thought, and then we will get to that. But first, let me go to the live chat. Armin is here. Hello. You say, "Hi, Daisuke. I remember watching the film when I was 10, but haven't seen it since." Oh, great. Let's see. MBP talking about Sean Connery's disguise here. Yes, the disguise is amusingly unconvincing. He looks more like Mark Leonard as Sarek from Star Trek. That's a really good comparison. I agree. Let's see. Damfool says, yes, after reading reports, imagine the usual Japanese fandom intensity, but in the 60s, without modern security parameters for famous people. In the commentary, they relate a hilarious story where the new guards hired for Sean immediately whipped out autograph books. Yes. Yeah. Cooper Clever says, 1972 says, that small helicopter looked kind of... You're talking about Little Nelly? I think the Little Nelly sequence, yeah. Right, Tiger even says, oh, this can only be for children, Bon-san, take my helicopter instead, or something like that. But in fact, Little Nelly serves a great purpose, because it's a great action set piece. And it shows the dexterity and agility, of the smallness of Little Nelly versus these 4 black helicopters. There are 4, right? As they are attacking Bond. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry. As they are attacking Bond when he's trying to survey the coast there. What was I saying? So yes, so Little Nelly versus the helicopters. I think that's probably another highlight of the film. I like it because it's use of the James Bond theme. It's edited, of course, but I always thought that use of the James Bond theme was really effective, really effective, because it was set against action for the first time, I think. Because if please correct me if I'm mistaken, but all the way up to then, in the James Bond film series, the Broccoli Saltzman film series, the James Bond theme, this theme that was the rendition of this, which was the most memorable recording or rendition of the James Bond theme, which we first heard in Dr. No, of course. But we heard it in Dr. No, it was played in places here and there in a really interesting kind of sequence, but they were used when Bond is introduced in Dr. No, and in the gambling den there, or when when he goes to Jamaica for the first time, and we see Felix Leiter open his newspaper in the airport. It's like he opens the newspaper, it's like da 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 da, and then it just fades out randomly. And I think in From Russia with Love, it's used when he's trying to check out the hotel room, like he's just walking around, and he gives the porter a little bit of I assume to be a nice bill, a nice tip. And he's, oh, thank you, sir. And he's walking around, it's da 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 da, and it wouldn't be the type of application of the theme that one might immediately think, right? You'd think, oh, this is a theme that would be applied in a car chase or something. Oh no, but it's here, Bond stealthily walking in his hotel room, and then it comes to the climactic moment, da 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 da, when he goes behind, he sees the thing in the picture, right? That's the moment in From Russia with Love when the theme is used. Wow, great. Bond walking around in hotel room. Yes, that's where I'll use the James Bond theme, right? But right, and then here in You Only Live Twice, we have it in an action mode. And it's edited, of course, to extend the length of time of it, because it's a really short piece. But it's edited in here and there. But I think it's really effective, because we see the helicopters swirling in the air, and the bad guys, they're going like this, and and they're wearing black sunglasses. Oh, total villainy. I love it. And the helicopters are black color. Oh man, and there's Sean Connery there in his wonderful helmet, and he's got the Sean Connery face is like, all right, okay, I'll push a button. That's great, absolutely great. And then it goes back and forth. But the point of that is Little Nelly is small and agile enough to evade her attackers, such that she can go around and go above and drop the bombs and go like this and do the little machine gun attack and that sort of thing. So, and the rockets, and that's great. So I thought that was a really great moment. And the use of the James Bond theme there is one of my favorites. And we also saw it too in On Her Majesty's Secret Service as well, the Bond film that followed a couple years later, on the attack on Piz Gloria. and the helicopter goes over the snow edge, and it's like da 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 da. These are Draco's men attacking in the flamethrower. Da da da. And then like the doctor throwing the acid, da 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 da. And like I love like Bond looking at oh da 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 da. And at the end, Bond like walking around looking at the map of the girls, right? Da 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 da. So that's great. But here in You Only Live Twice, it's so cool. Anyway. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I think the Little Nelly sequence is fantastic, and it's an excuse also to have Desmond Llewellyn Q appear. And it's always great to see Desmond Llewellyn, and he's as just ticked off as always. I don't know why would he's just always in a bad mood, right? I don't know why. I mean, he said he had a long and tiring journey. So what does that mean? Did they didn't let him fly first class? I'm not sure. Maybe I always thought, they let him fly coach. I'm not sure. If that's the case, then I would be ticked off as well. And just because it's also a really brutal time difference, really brutal. It's quite it's very draining, in fact. And so I can and sympathize with Q's irritability, because he probably is just got off the plane. He had very little sleep, and the like. So, and Tiger too is not yet convinced as to Little Nelly's capabilities. So, but excuse me, but that's the Little Nelly sequence. But that brings me to another point too, and I'll get to the live chat in a second, which is another, I think, curious thing about the Bond film here in the Bond universe. As I indicated before, and Zyroth also indicated, this is one of the only Bond films that doesn't take place within the geographic locale of Great Britain. If we don't count the fact that the submarine itself would probably be, it's considered within the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. If we don't count that, so in terms of geographical locations and settings, of course, in reality, we know that certain film production things, right? We understand that, but in terms of the film locales, right? And so we get very little of M and Q and Moneypenny. And in fact, the gadgets that we see here we see Little Nelly, but everything else is the Japanese Secret Service side. And so, my understanding is that, for example, Tiger Tanaka is right. All these gadgets are on his end, and does anyone know that? My understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the film, Tiger works for the Japanese Secret Service, which I understand is an arm of the Japanese government. And so if that's the case, then that means that the Japanese government and the British government are working together in conjunction to try to solve this mystery of what happened to the rocket or the rockets. And so is my understanding there correct? So Tiger Tanaka is not a member of the British Secret Service, but he's a member of the Japanese Secret Service, or the head of the Japanese Secret Service, which means that he is working for the Japanese government. And so if that's the case, then all the gadgets, or the cigarette gadget that's used at the end there, is a Japanese Secret Service gadget. So it's not one of Q's little toys. Which is an interesting thing, which therefore means that for the most part this is more centralized in terms of its plot anyway, in areas that are outside of what we otherwise saw in the earlier Bond films. Q's office, Bond getting briefed in London, the Moneypenny office scene, etc. So, but anyway, let me just go to the chat, and we will go from there. Stealthborn says, it may have been silly looking, but who wouldn't want a helicopter like that? I did once. Yeah, me too. Let's see. Wolfgratz is remarking about like depictions of other cultures, right? And he says it was a bit like the outer elements of American films set in London. Some strange presumptions will surface. Yes, I mean it's true for. It's not just true for depictions of Japanese culture. You're absolutely right. Let's see. Yes, Erwin is talking about the makeup, right? After a few scenes, they also completely drop the makeup and he looks as usual again. Yeah, yeah. I think when he's swimming, and I think that's the occasion for the makeup to wear off. I think, and then he infiltrates the base and he saves the astronauts and then he goes in. He makes the faux pas with his pack, of course, but. Let's see. Yes, Zyrother makes the point. Yes, he drops the makeup when they get in the cave. Yes, and they've already been in the water. Let's see. Zyrother says he could have just joined the ninjas as they landed on the island. What a ridiculous plot point to have him go in disguise. Yeah, but actually, but remember though, the launch of the American rocket had been the schedule was changed, right? Because that was the reason why Tanaka ran up to them in the middle of the night when they were sleeping, right? In Miyahama's house, right? And they're sleeping in separate beds, of course. And that has that creepy, that's Bond in creep mode, right? When he's just like in the bed, just looking at her, like just. that's Bond in creep mode there, right there. Oh my god! But anyway, because he's so upset that she won't agree to the whole cover story of them being married. So anyway, okay, but that's right. That's the moment where Tiger runs up to them in the middle of the night and he informs them that the Americans have moved up their launch schedule and it'll be midnight tonight. And so I think therefore the point was that he was meant to be in disguise for a much longer period of time, right? I think the original time period that was given by M at the beginning was 3 weeks, I think. But excuse me. But yeah, so I think my understanding, I understand, I felt the same way too, Zyrother, but I was thinking about that and I was thinking, yeah, maybe it was meant to be that he would have been in disguise for a more considerable amount of time, which was therefore, that was the reason why he needed to be in disguise in the first place. But if the time schedule ended up being what it ended up, which was very short, very truncated, that means that it wasn't necessary to begin with. So, but yeah, that's a really good point. Damn Fool says, how to not act Japanese, stoop over bad eyepieces, muttering a few words. Yeah. Yeah. But they didn't matter because it was when he arrived on the boat there, that was during the funeral procession of one of Miyahama's character's friends. You know, what does the elderly woman there say? You know, あんたの友達が死んだよ。誰タイちゃんが今お葬式なの which is what's that, you know, your friend died, Tai-chan, this is her funeral, or that's the thing. So right, but Wolfcat says, but Spencer, he got a first at Cambridge. Yeah. You know, that was one of the things too that I was always looking. Has anyone ever found that book Instant Japanese that Moneypenny throws to Bond? I remember seeing it once. Maybe my memory is tricking me. Maybe I didn't really see it, but I remember thinking that I saw it once in a bookstore or something like that. But I didn't. Does it really exist? Is my mind playing tricks on me? And Zyrother says he can't pronounce sake correctly. Sake. Yes, that's right. But although, to his credit, even Tiger Tanaka, in his English language voice, doesn't pronounce the place Kobe correctly when in reference to Kobe docks. He too says Kobe docks. And I think it's during this moment where he actually says Ningpu. But yeah, in case anyone is interested, it's Kobe, not Kobe. And in case you're also interested, in fact, I was born in Kobe, the Kobe area. So my birthplace is Kobe. So I wasn't born in the dock area, but in that general vicinity. I don't know the area very well now, unfortunately, because I haven't been back in many, many years. But anyway. Yes. Damn Fool says, we must find the source of the trouble before time runs out. No, first you must become ninja for days on end. Yes. Yes. That's an yes. Yes, that's the thing. Tiger Tanaka's plan. What was his plan anyway? I mean, it's a quite a... I really have to do a more critical analysis of Tiger Tanaka's strategic thinking. Yeah, there's something a little bit interesting about it. But anyway, okay. Cooper Clever says the volcano set was the largest set in the world at the time until it was topped by Ken Adam, as well as The Spy Who Loved Me. It was the same guy who did You Only Live Twice. Yes. And Zyroth says terrible security at the training facility. Dude just walks in and tries to kill Bond. Yes, yes. And then Rider Raider 18 says it's one of the best sets ever constructed. Yes, hold on. Sorry about this. Again, just this. I can't control the scroll down button on the live chat. Excuse me there. My goodness. Sorry about this. Sorry about this. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. Where was it? Oh gosh, it's one of these things where I just try to scroll down. It takes me to the very end, so I'm just, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about this. And anyway, while I'm trying to get back to where I was, let me now. Gosh, let's see. Oh yeah. Sorry about this. This is one of the irritating things about the, yeah. Here we go. So now I'm back. So hold on. Oh, Wolfgrat says, but Helga's murder plan is so stupid even for a villain. Yes. Yeah, no ID checks. Yes. Sink the Bounty. Are you familiar with Lewis Gilbert? Yes, the director of the film. Yes, and he also has a really deep connection with the world of James Bond, and we'll talk about that later with other films, of course. Okay. And Erwin says, the set is amazing. Yes, I love how they hold the shot the first time just to show off. Yes, I agree. DVD Mike 007, James Bond, he will never play for Anglican Stanley. Yeah, he didn't, right? He has to drink more milk, of course. Yes, Damn Fool's talking about the melody of You Only Live Twice. The melody is very recognizable. John Barry's work. Ryan Harding is here. Hello. It's wonderful to see you, my friend. And Erwin says Robbie Williams agrees. Yes. And let's see. I'm just scrolling down here. Sorry, I'm skipping over some great comments here. Yeah, the Morris Binder titles are then the volcano and the orange, and that's a wonderful motif. And I think he uses the image of the parasol, or the umbrella parasol, which is, I think, another wonderful motif as well. Parasols are still used even. I mean, they aren't the sort of the kind of the quote unquote oriental motif of the parasol that we see open and close in the Morris Binder titles, but they're kind of like modern day umbrellas that people use now. But still, I think that's really great. Yes, and Erwin says it's great that the Bond theme dictates the Little Nelly action sequence. My thoughts exactly, my friend. Gosh, just skipping over some great moments. Damn Fools, the film is an excellent travel commercial for Japan. Actually, I agree. I really agree. I think it's wonderful. Let's see, Cooper Clever. The Asian parts sort of suggested by xylophones. Yeah. I was referring to the little bit in the song. At the very beginning, but that's the only part where it occurs. Erwin's talking about the street shots of Tokyo are amazing. I agree. Excuse me. Rod is talking about the original book about the castle on the coast. I'm not an expert. I didn't see any castles in the movie. Actually, there were some castles actually, but they were very brief. But they weren't part of. They weren't part of the actual villain's lair. That's for sure. So, let's see. Yeah. And Mr. Mogford says, love Bjork's cover. Me too. I love Bjork's cover so much. Uh, I can't do Bjork impersonation, so please forgive me. But I just love the you only live twice. Ah, great. That wonderful Bjork voice. Yeah. Oops. And so, oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. And hold on for 1 second here. Okay. Just give me 1 second here. Just okay. And let's see. Sorry about this. And just moving on. Let's see. I agree. Stealthborn says, I agree with Daisuke where Connery is going along for the ride. This was where I first noticed that Connery was starting to tire of the role. Just skipping down here. Rider rated 18 continues. Looking back, you can see a difference with Connery. Let's see. Ryan also continues. Harding continues. You get a real sense of Connery being tired during filming of You Only Live Twice in the BBC's World Show. Yes. Damn Fool counters, though. Everyone labels Sean being bored, etc. He's still performing well. The issue is more that the focus is on the spectacle and not upon himself. That's actually, my point exactly, but you express it much better than I do. Well done. Let's see. Rod says, glad to say James Bond was Scottish. Fact. Haha. And just skipping over some other comments here. Rider 18, it's a lot more noticeable in Diamonds Are Forever. Oh yes, I can't wait to speak about Diamonds Are Forever, in fact. We'll get there in another live stream, I hope. Yeah. Damn Fool says, I would buy the instant Japanese paperback if I ever found it. So yeah, has anyone found that paperback? Sad and and yeah. Yes, Erwin says it's also hilarious that when Tiger speaks Japanese, his voice is completely different than his English dub. Yeah, you're referring to the moment where we hear him speak Japanese in the bath. Yes. Yes, and Damful said, I also love that the agents speak into their purses was subtitled on certain video releases. Right? Oh, really? It was subtitled? That's interesting. 彼は今通りました。繰り返します。Or something like that. Which is, I think it's meant. She says, he has now passed this point. I will repeat. He has now passed this, or something like that. Yes. The code word, I love you. And Erwin says the code word is imminent. It is imminent. I repeat, it is imminent. Yes. I love that. I love, in fact, the beginning when you have the World Power Summit at the beginning, and they're saying, we are a peace-loving people, and the British delegation say, we don't agree, and I love how he pronounced the word Singapore and instead of Japan area. Yeah. He's talking about our man in Hong Kong. And it's interesting too why this British delegation would be saying out loud to the U.S. and Russian delegation about one of his secret agents who's working in Hong Kong. That always struck me as a little bit odd. But anyway. Ryan says, would the average Japanese person in 1967 have understood what "I love you" means when spoken in English? I think so. Let's see. Yeah, Erwin says the code word in From Russia with Love was so much more complex. Damn Fool says it should have been a number we use this gun as a standard issue for not just the 00 section but other services. Yes, the gun point, yes. But at this point, the mandate was to follow the Thunderball film formula to a T. Yes. Imboard 3 Arlin 3 says, I hope I get to live at least twice. Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Yeah. There's now we're getting to the Siamese vodka part, and as I say, I've never tried it. Um, yeah. Erwin says the Hans fight is not interesting because we absolutely don't care about Hans. Such a nondescript character. Yeah, I mean he had so much potential. I think Hans did in terms of the key and where he kept it in his pocket, and he's twirling it, and his black clothes and his hulking presence and all this. But he just has that one mistake with the punch on the bridge. Yeah, yeah. And Wolfgrat's the dodgy key was fun. Yeah, that was the point where I was talking about the key and Sean Connery's jiggle. Yes, uh, yes, and the button is a red button. Yes, yes. Although at this point, right, he had 5 seconds to spare instead of seven. What is it? It's not 7 seconds like in Goldfinger. Although I think what is it? It's at 7 or 3. I don't know in Goldfinger, but anyway, here it's 5. So that's interesting. But, let's see. Just skipping over the great conversation here. Oh, Ryan. Wow, that's interesting. I really wish they'd cast someone like Shimiya Iwashita for Mia Hama's. That's an interesting. Wow. Wow. Interesting. Oh, now, let's see. Ryan says, for me, Mia Hamm is the most forgettable Bond girl during Connery's tenure. Yeah, I think that's it might have to do also with the fact that we don't get enough time to know her. I mean, there's a moment where she's talking about her parents, and she says that, yes, my parents are dead. And I think, wow, like, really? That I want to. I'm so sorry. I want to know more about your life story. But Bond's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Where's the oysters? And he's like, yeah, we're supposed to be married. I want my bed to be next to yours. So well, let me now sleep. And while you're sleeping, I'm gonna just watch you. That kind of thing. But I would have loved to have known more about her character. And her friend too, right? One of her friends died, which leads to the whole clue with the secret entrance and all that. So, yeah, but we don't get enough time to spend with her, unfortunately. So, oh well, that's how things go with that. But yeah, I would have, yeah. And there's talk about Monica Vanderzil, who's a very important component. Zyrother also mentions, yes, Diane Clento, who's body doubled many people for swimming scenes. That's true. And speaking of body doubles and stunt doubles, I love the Kobe dock scene. Don't get me wrong, but the one thing I always love is when Aki climbs down the rope and suddenly her hair becomes shorter. That's a wonderful moment. And then the dun 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 dun, and suddenly her hair gets shorter, and she's climbing down the rope, and she's running away from Bond, as Bond is up on the rooftop and fighting the men. Right. So anyway, okay. Yes, Wolfgratz is talking about Shimada and Osato. As I said, what a great character. Yes, a damn fool in Wolfgratz. Well done, Adam. Hello. It's nice to see you, my friend. You had this on VHS. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Let's see. Cooper Clever 72 has an interesting question about perceived racism of Asian characters in other films. I'll leave that for another day. Cooper Clever 72. That's a really interesting question. Let's see. Oh, this is the road. Hello from Germany. It's nice to see you. Okay. Wolfgrat says, I rather liked Charles Gray as Henderson. Yes. I'm glad that Bond got it right with the leg. Yeah, if he got it wrong, I can't imagine. I don't even want to imagine. But, and there's that little thing, and he's, that was stirred, not shaken. I did get that right. And Bond says, perfect. A Russian vodka, well done, and he gets that and other things, right? I don't know what those other things mean, but anyway, Henderson and the stirred not shaken thing. I always was curious about that because that's sometimes, excuse me, that's sometimes described as being a flub or a mistake, a movie mistake, because it's obviously shaken, not stirred, not stirred, not shaken, and Bond reacts in kind of acceptance. But I never saw it that way. I always saw it as being Bond being polite as a guest of Henderson and not wanting to correct his host. And also further compliment, and also I think because of the fact that he was impressed by the use of Russian vodka, that he let it go. And so that's how I thought of it. And also, that's another area of the film, the Henderson meeting, where Bond says this is the first time in Tokyo. Excuse me. This is his first time in Tokyo, but that he mentioned actually that he was in Tokyo with M in From Russia with Love during the recording when they're trying to identify the veracity of the lector. And so people have mentioned, oh, but he's been to Tokyo before, at least he said so. And I don't know, maybe, right? So that's also cited as being a slight movie mistake. But anyway, let's see here. Let's see. Alan, our dear friend here. It's nice to see you, my friend. Let's see. Cooper Glover, 1972, asks, are Japanese celebrities followed around with paparazzi really aggressively? Actually, I'm not a paparazzi expert, but my sense is yes, in fact. It's a really aggressive culture like that. And there is a what is it? What's the phrase? Those sorts of gossip magazines, and that's a really big industry here. So let's see. Talking about Charles Gray. Yes, I mean there are Charles Gray and the fact that he appears here as well, and Shane Rimmer as well appears, and so this is probably. I mean, we always think about the Terrence Young Bond films, or the Guy Hamilton Bond films, or the John Glenn era, or the Tom Mankiewicz era. I always like to think also of the Shane Rimmer era, the Shane Rimmer Bond films. Those are really important. But anyway, here he is. I love his. It's blown up. I repeat, it's blown. And anyway, what a Shane Rimmer. Yeah. And Ryan says, I love Tetsuo Tamba and Sean Connery's chemistry in the film. Yeah, I agree. Ryan says, similar to Karen Bay. Yeah, I agree. Yes, and Damn Fool says a great, getting Tamba was like getting Ferzetti for Draco, the perfect embodiment of the Fleming prose character. I agree 1,000% with that. The casting was that's one of the best parts of the film, and you're absolutely right to make that comparison with Gabriele Ferzetti. Yeah, and Wolfgrat's talking about other people in the volcano crater crew, the Blofeld crew. There's also, right, the closing crater, right? He never gets any luck, right? I mean, he's got the cigarette gun here, and Zorin and the blimp. Oh man! But anyway, and let's see. Let's see, and. I'll get to Blofeld in a moment, but I just want to get to this great chat. It's wonderful. Let's see. Okay. So I'm just scrolling through here. It's a great. Yes, Alexander Knox. Yes. Right, Kohler's is not, I repeat, not imminent, and everyone shakes hands at the end. Yes, that's great. Yes, and It's also great too. I always, whenever I see the television version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, yeah, Alexander Knox. Anyway, let's see. Let's see. Yeah. What a great conversation, Erwin. Yes. Yes, influence on of You Only Live Twice, not just on future Bond flicks, but also Austin Powers. Of course, yes, of course. Right, Blofeld says, "Allow me to introduce myself," and I always think he should say, "Allow myself to introduce," or something. Yes, Zyrother says, also worst offender of over elaborate death sequence. Yes, but I love it for it's so terrible. These people can't do it, man. All right, let's see. Damful says, I named my first car Aki. Oh, wow, because it was a white Japanese-made Acura. Oh, that's great. And tell me, Spencer, were you able to drive in perfectly timed situations to save Bond just in the nick of time? You know, and, and did you have a little thing there? And did you say something like, "Oh, it's just a drop in the ocean," something like that? Oh gosh, that is one of the great classics. Yes, I agree. That's so fantastic. But anyway, okay, sorry about this. Oh, my computer's acting up again. And I'll give you one. Sorry about this. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah. That is a great, oh gosh, just give me 1 second. My computer is just acting up here. Sorry about this. Just give me 1 second here. Yes. Okay. Sorry about this. There we go. So where was I? Yes. So the Aki's car. Yeah, that's one of the classic cars, I think. Wolfgrat says Spectre's recruitment and training is dreadful. Yeah. Okay. This brings me to Spectre and Blofeld and the whole operation. Yes. So okay, this is of course the introduction of, well, not the introduction because we've seen Blofeld in many iterations, but we've never seen his face. And so now we see his face in the guise of Donald Pleasance. Of course, it wasn't originally meant to be Donald Pleasance, but it ended up being Donald Pleasance. And so we've got the wonderful scar, and it's so iconic, and the bald head, and the jacket, and all that. So that's all great, right? And he's got this really odd intonation, Bond says, "Yeah, this is my second life," and Blofeld says, "Oh, you only live twice," and that sort of really creepy stuff. I'm about to inaugurate a little war, and even the way that he strokes the cat, it's very, and he's got the thing where he says, "Extortion is my business," and he's got the thing with his, and he's really like getting at it with the cat's head. I don't know, but. And he's talking with representatives of a foreign government. We're not quite sure what it is, but the implication is that a foreign power that is not the US, not Japan, and not the Soviet Union is using Spectre in order to try to initiate a war, a world war between the United States and the Soviet Union. And Spectre, headed by Blofeld, has agreed for price to proceed with this operation. And Spectre then in turn is using Osato chemicals as a front or as a means of production for the various materials needed for the implementation of this operation. Okay, so we don't know what the foreign power is, but there's that. So Spectre is a private organization, so it's not a world, it's not a global power, it's not a government, but it's a private organization, and it's headed by Blofeld. Okay. But it's a little bit unclear actually. I mean, it's not like one of these things where it's a plot with a super weapon of that sort of thing. These are just essentially basically stealing rockets. And I would always think that the U.S. and Soviet Union I mean, they would probably have. I mean, I don't know. Was it really that difficult to figure out that the rocket was originating from the Sea of Japan? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a politician and I'm not a spy, so I'm not sure. But you know, one would think that they would probably have their own resources to determine that maybe it came from elsewhere. But anyway, so that's the plot. So that leads to the introduction of Spectre, right? And you've got the wonderful suits, the red suits and everything, and then they kidnap the astronauts as well, and you know, the poor guy. And that's a wonderful thing at the very beginning. What was the? I'm not an astronaut, but what was the exact mission anyway of that American rocket and the rocket, and the guy goes out and he's just floating around? What was his exact mission there? And there wasn't any structure around there. He's just flying out there testing some equipment, I don't know, and just happens to be being kidnapped by this super missile, which cuts the lifeline, and he's floating out into space. I don't know. Maybe he's going to meet Drax there. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a party. But anyway, so yeah, so it's I don't know. I would say that's a little that the MacGuffin part is, that's why it's a MacGuffin. You don't have to think about it too much, but it's a little bit okay. But anyway, it leads to Spectre, and all roads lead to Spectre, and so we've got the introduction of the full-faced introduction of Blofeld, and Bond meets Blofeld, his arch nemesis, over the course of however many films, and wow, it's quite an introduction. That being said, of course, we do get a little bit of the little maybe holes in the operation. So Spectre's mode of recruitment might leave something to be desired, and maybe it's not entirely impregnable, right, as Blofeld might think or want to think. And also we've got, excuse me. Also, we have an interesting characterization when it comes to Blofeld, right? I mean, one of my favorite exchanges between Bond and Blofeld is like, he's talking about, you know, you can watch it all on live TV, all the massacre of these men, and he says, you know, well, if I have to watch this, may I smoke? And this is another moment where my mom and I would just laugh out loud. Oh, you know, if I have to watch, you know, if I'm going to be captured like this, you know, may I smoke? Yeah, sure. It's not the nicotine that's going to kill you, Mr. Bond. As I turn around and walk away and leave you to smoke your cigarette. Right? And so, of course, that leads to the great moment where Bond takes the cigarette and just, boom, you know, gives it to the and it's enough of a distraction to get the crater to open to let Tiger's men in. So yeah, that's a great moment. But man, wow, yeah. May I smoke? No, Blofeld, say no. You can't smoke. You can't do anything. You're gonna sit there. Or I'm gonna tie you up or something. I want you dead. So I'm gonna kill you right now. That's the sort of thing that you should have done, Blofeld. But no. You had to be like, oh yeah, I've got a clever thing about nicotine that I'm going to say right now, and then turn around. Yeah. So it's on you, Blofeld. That's totally on you. But Blofeld's got great style. He's got great shoes. You see a close up of his shoes when he's about to push the pedal. And the trapdoor bridge there collapses. That's another thing too with platforms, and you only live twice. Watch where you walk, my friends, because you never know when something's going to collapse and then you're going to fall into a pool of piranhas or a slide that takes you to Tiger Tanaka's office. Blofeld, right? It's just one of those weird characters of James Bond, and you know, this is one of the things where actually I would have liked to have seen more Osato, because I thought Osato was a really interesting character, but he had to be relegated to playing second fiddle to Blofeld, because Blofeld is the big bad, and he has been for however many films, and so we needed to see his face, and so he becomes actually probably one of the most iconic moments or iconic images of this film. is the face of Blofeld and the appearance of Blofeld here, which I understand. And Donald Pleasance, I think, gives an amazing performance. As I say, there's just a way that he carries his posture. There's this weird, odd quirkiness when he's doing the thing with the key at the end, and his arm is injured, and all this, and the way he pets his cat. It's just, they're odd choices, which is great, absolutely great. It's just the sort of thing we need. There isn't any physical threat that he poses, which is why we need Hans there, I suppose. But it's great to see the emergence of Blofeld here on camera for the first time like this. It's been teased at for so long, but last week we see the face, so that's really wonderful news. But as you say, right, Spectre, right, it really needed to up its game somehow, and just maybe recruit some better personnel. Although, you know, maybe that's a bad thing against the. I know they did their very best. And they really worked hard to try to achieve Spectre's mission here. So, you know, I don't want to sound too hard against the people who worked for Spectre. I'm sure, I mean, there's a whole thing in Clerks, you know, the Kevin Smith film Clerks, about the people who worked in the Death Star, the Star Wars film The Death Star. And I think something can be said, I'm being very serious here, I think something can be said about the people who work at Spectre. You know, I'm sure they're just trying to do their jobs, and they're engineers, and they're technicians, and they're guards, and so they're just trying to do their jobs here. I don't know if they're all evil like Blofeld, but there's that. Incidentally, too, am I wrong? I've always, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but when Bond rescues those astronauts, right, and who are captive in the volcano, in the crater, and they all dress up as astronauts and get into the giant rocket, right? And it's the giant rocket that's going to swallow the American spacecraft, right, at the very end, and it explodes, right? So, but Bond explodes it, right, or he sets off the detonation, which means therefore that he killed the astronauts who were on that ship. Is that right? Which, I mean, I guess it's part of the mission, but man, if that's true, poor guys who are there. Anyway, yeah. So, let's see here. Okay. Damn Fool says, Spy, referring to Spy Who Loved Me, right? Spy is an uncredited remake of You Only Live Twice structure. Yes, and then we can take that further, as Moonraker is is an uncredited remake of Spy Who Loved Me. So, let's see. Scrolling down here again. Great conversation as always, my friends. Well done, well done. Zyrother says Spectre has crazy technology. Yeah. Damn Fool says the plane death, referring to Helga's attempt to assassinate Bond. The plane death is, or Mr. Fisher, the plane death trap is nonsensical, but the only thing that gets me is the bad layout of the rear projection, and so obviously stage. Yes. The parachute. Yeah. Dave, hello Dave, it's nice to see you. Jason, hello, it's nice to see you. Jason Webster. It's great. Stealthborn says the villains suffer from overdrawn convenience syndrome. Oh, great. Let's see. And Cooper Glover, in response to the Little Nelly, I just thought the Little Nelly scene was just... excuse me, sorry. I just thought the Little Nelly scene was just for entertainment, and I thought it somewhat didn't move the story ahead because Connery doesn't ever even see the volcano base until later. That's right. He actually says, I mean, the Little Nelly sequence, you're right, narratively speaking, is worthless because it doesn't lead to any productive intel. right? Because he just says, oh, it's just volcanoes, that's it. So he doesn't make the discovery about the volcano crater until later without Little Nelly. So you're absolutely right, absolutely right. Yeah, but Zyrother makes the point too. The fact Bond is attacked by 4 helicopters gives him a clue that there's something on the... That's a good point. That's a really good point too. Let's see. Yeah, you'd think if 4 helicopters would suddenly attack, you'd think, oh, there's probably something fishy about this place. I'm going to investigate more. Okay. Let's see. Wolfgrat says, one of my favorite Shakespeare experts has always told me everything in a production must have a point. As I tell her, she has never seen a Bond film. Yeah. Yeah, the Q scene, and when he flies Little Nelly, yeah, he taunts everyone flying. Yes, as Ern says, not once, but twice. Yes, you only live twice. Yeah, taunting Q. Yes. Cooper Glover 72 says, would Tiger be Japanese equivalent of the American Felix Leiter? Yeah, although I think it would be, he's the head of the Secret Service here. So he wouldn't be an agent, but he's the head, although, right, I'm not sure. Let's see. But yeah, but the analogy, I think, is very sound still. Yes, Damful says Japanese SIS. Yes, thank you, thank you. Okay. Sorry about this. Again, with the way that this live chat arrows are working. Gosh, this is really quite difficult to maneuver. Sorry about this. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. Okay, sorry about this. I'm just going through the great... I'm skipping over a lot of great comments. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Irwin is talking about the distance that Bond and the Miyahama character have to walk, yeah, over the Japanese, essentially Japanese countryside to that volcano. They have to walk up a volcano and down the... that is a lot of serious walking. And it's not surprising that she would feel a little bit physically exhausted at some point, because I can't even begin to imagine the distance they must have had to traversed, as well as the swimming they had to do before, all this. That's amazing. And it's nighttime, so I don't know how cold it would have been, and she's there only in a bikini. So, and let's see. So, let's see. Kevin O'Connell's here. Hello. It's nice to see you. Dave says, I'm 60 plus years old and I still watch these movies with a child's sense of wonder. This is what popcorn was invented for. Well said, my friend. Okay. Talking about... Yes, Dave Jane says Goldfinger was 007 seconds, yes, or 3 ticks, however you want to think about it. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, and Aaron says the explosion at the end didn't affect the American rocket. Yeah, they were so close. I always thought about that too, but none of the debris seemed to affect the American rocket, so it was okay. Yeah, and the president says, oh yeah, everything's fine, don't worry about it. Let's see. Will Rem says, I've always wanted to ride Tiger's little slide in that lovely lounge chair. A legend. Tamba is a legend. Yes, the slide. Complete. I would love to ride that slide to complete with my own close-up with the back projection. Twice, in fact. Right? Is it twice or more? I forget. But yes. Yeah. That's damn fools. That's a funny stunt person thing with Aki, much like how the ninjas are, of course, mostly British stuntmen. Although there's at one moment with the sword play and the ninja, just really impracticable, but so cool at the very end there. And let's see, Cole Sutherland, hello. Let's see, what was your introduction to Bond? That's a really great question. I'll try to get to that in a separate video. But let's see. Damn fools! I could listen to 2 hours of Henderson talking. The stir dot shaken has been said to be both a mistake and an in-joke, but the inference one makes Bond is indeed letting it go. Yes, I agree completely, and especially because of the Russian vodka thing. Let's see. Ryan Harding is making a comment about the book and the Kissy character. You're absolutely right about that. It's not quite where the film goes, of course. Let's see. Will Ram says Shane Rimmer is the man. Yes, another legend. Yes, so many legends here. Great. Kevin O'Connell says, I think Tanaka is the best part of the film for me. I agree. I love you. Yes, indeed. All right, Rider rated 18. I'm off to bed. All right, good night, my friend. I hope you're well. Have a great day tomorrow. Cheers, my friend. And let's see, Timothy is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. I hope you're well. It's nice to see you as always. Let's see. Erwin says, I really felt bad for that cat. Poor creature starts freaking out at some point. Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone ever talked about the treatment of the cats in James Bond films? I don't know. Timothy says, getting at it with the cat's head. Okay, did I say that? Yeah. Yeah, he's really, yeah, okay. Let's see. Will Rem says, Daisuke, your excellent summary of Blofeld's plan should be included in a booklet with... Well, that's very kind of you, my friend. You're so kind. Thank you. I can't wait until we do Diamonds Are Forever, my friend. I hope that's very soon. I hope you are able to make it to the live stream for Diamonds Are Forever, because I can't wait to hear what it is you have to say. Bitten by the bug. Yeah. If God had wanted man to fly, he would have given him wings, Mr. Kid. Yeah. Can't wait. Yeah, and the cat, speaking of cats looking peeved, yes, I think probably the cat in Diamonds Are Forever, that's some serious cat peevage, that's for sure, especially when you have the dueling cats there, and the cat fight. You actually see an almost cat fight there. That's great. Anyway, we'll have to think about that and cats elsewhere. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about Drax and Moonraker. I mean, it's still the Lewis Gilbert Bond universe, so anything can happen. Yes. Okay. The line. Yes. The smoking gun, the gadget there. I don't know how well that plays now because of the image of smoking cigarettes and 2020, right? And even Bond says, Pierce Brosnan's Bond says at one point, filthy habit. So it becomes this thing where it becomes this politically incorrect thing. But the smoking in Bond films, I mean, that's a really, smoking saved his life, really, in that film. So very interesting indeed. Yes. Goodness. And talking about the astronauts who are in the rocket. Yes. So Dan Fool says it's like Cooper Glover also says, yeah, and they're talking about the plot there. Bond essentially sacrifices those two men. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Let's see. Damfool also says the astounding Freddie Young photography. Yes, one wonders who else could have shot the volcano set at that time to get the massive scale right. You're absolutely right. You know, it's astounding how much detail you can see in those wide shots. And to get, you're right, the scale is captured tremendously. This is such a well photographed film, and you're absolutely right, Spencer, to mention this. Freddie Young, absolutely. And Wolfrat's like the construction workers on the Death Star, yes. And Damn Fool, Spencer, you continue. So You Only Live Twice could be called the best shot of the series, and visually it is always remarkable in composition, scale, focus, and usage of the scope frame. You're absolutely right. The depth of field. I mentioned one of my favorite shots of Osato in the distance, running up the steps so pathetically, and so the camera depth tells story and character, as well as the beauty of the frame, and also the crater shots, magnificent. The way that light seems to focus off or reflect off of surfaces indoors. You're absolutely right, Spencer. Let's see. Erwin says, talking about the astronauts going into the rocket. Bond goes into the rocket. Wait, I thought... is it only Bond going into the rocket? Because I thought maybe the other astronauts go into other entrances. I'm not sure, but anyway, I could be wrong, of course. Erwin says those Americans are left behind for some reason. Are they left behind, or do they go into separate entrances? I'm not sure. Right, because it's, yeah. Anyway. Groovy Lisa, hello. It's nice to see you. I like James Bond. Me too. Let's see. And yes, all you lucky people, hello. And you say, speaking of cats, I wonder if anyone has ever named their cat Pussy Galore. It's possible. And Damn Fool says, I quote, diamonds are forever everywhere. And Will Ram, thank you. Dr. Tyne, thank you. Yes, this is wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. So now going back to the film discussion. So thank you for the great live chat discussion. It's still ongoing. There's still some time left. So please continue. And Ragman is here. Hello, my friend. It's nice to see you. Damn Fool, Spencer, you say, my favorite shot of the entire film is the tight close-up on Bond when breaking into the safe and hearing the guards in the hallway. The focus on Bond and the unfocused fall-off on either side heightens the tension. Really interesting. That's a great moment. And that's one, too, where he is very careful. That's interesting. And the close-ups on Bond's face, you're right. You're really right to bring that up. Well said. Well spotted. And about that scene where he's breaking into the safe, I love, too, where he's doing his best to try to find to crack open the safe, and he's trying to hide and do it. And as soon as he opens the door, bam, the alarm goes off. And although, to his credit, though, he is very clever. Bond is in evading the guards. All he does is he hides behind the filing cabinet. So, well done, Bond. Well done. And so, yeah, there is that. And Cooper Glover 72 says the safe breaking scene reminds you of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, incidentally, about the Blofeld scene, one of the things I love about films and about James Bond films as well is when one of the characters says out the title of the film. And I love it. I don't know. Do you get this as well? There's a little bit of a hop in the step when you hear that. And so I love when he says, you only live twice. And I love that. And it's the same thing too with when it's like that little game that you play with the film, which is when is the title going to appear, or how is it going to be integrated? So I love, for instance, A View to a Kill, how that happens. Octopussy, it's all over the place with that film. And For Your Eyes Only, that's a kind of That's an interesting one as well. And Goldfinger too. That's all over the place. Obviously, From Russia with Love. That's an interesting one. I love Doctor No. That's too a name of a character, so it's mentioned a lot. But whenever it's mentioned, it's always mentioned with emphasis, right? Doctor No. But here, it's great. You only live twice. Spoken by Blofeld. So I was like, I don't know. Do you feel the same way whenever you watch a film? You wonder. It's sort of like Alfred Hitchcock cameo. When is it going to arrive? Or should I say John Glenn's pigeon? When is it going to arrive? And so I like it when it happens. I guess I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't occur completely on Her Majesty's Secret Service. There's mentions there of Her Majesty's Secret Service or Her Majesty's, but it's never on Her Majesty's or Secret Service. And I want to say also, is it not mentioned too in Diamonds Are Forever or Live and Let Die? And I don't want to count song title lyrics as well. So we wouldn't count Live and Let Die, or we wouldn't count The Spy Who Loved Me. But it's there in Moonraker, or it's there. GoldenEye, of course. I don't know. I don't think it's there in Tomorrow Never Dies either. There's a lot of Tomorrow, but there's never Tomorrow Never Dies, I think. And then The World Is Not Enough. It's there, and I can go on and on and on. But I don't. Is it there? It's not there in Quantum of Solace either, is it? There's a lot of quantum, but there's not a lot of. This is the Quantum of Solace. There's nothing like that. But I always like that. Do you feel the same way? I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, Damn Fool says, name dropping the title without inducing groans is an amazing lost art. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I guess we'll have to talk about one of my favorites, which is A View to a Kill. I don't know. Does that induce groans or not? We'll save that discussion for A View to a Kill. That's one of my favorite ones, actually. But anyway. Erwin says, it's already hilarious that he's carrying a device on him while he had no intention of going to investigate Osato's building, right? Yeah, incidentally, speaking of Osato's building, that's an actual hotel. I don't work there anymore, but my former employment was actually very close to that hotel location. So I took a lunch break one day and I walked to that hotel. And it looks pretty much the same as the outside portion of Osato Chemical. It doesn't have the word Osato on it, but that's a really cool looking building from the outside. Let's see. Yes, Cooper Glover 1972 says, why does Bond go back to the hotel the next day if he came across trouble the night before? You're talking about Osato, right? Yes, I suppose he just needed to get more information because it was, although you're right, why does he go the next day? Or why doesn't someone else go instead of Bond? Why does it have to be Bond? But I'm sure Tanaka could have sent another agent to serve as the Mr. Fisher type and just investigate Osato Chemicals more. But anyway, again, that's right. If I were Tiger, I would think let's send another agent there and let's set up an appointment and let's figure out who Osato is, what his deal is, and then we can just figure out what this mystery is. Instead of sending Bond, who was there already, and he probably would have briefed Tanaka as to what he did at Osato Chemicals. So he probably says he's already compromised, but no, let's send him again. All right. Anyway, and Erwin says Tiger made an appointment for him. Yes. So specifically in terms of the plot, we hear as Tiger and Bond are walking across the garden. He said, set me up with a meeting with Osato tomorrow morning. Yes, I can do that. So that's what he does. But it's a Bond film, so it's wonderful. Yeah, exactly. It's a Bond film. I love it. I love the film for it. Kevin O'Connell says, Daisuke, if you could pick any other Bond actor to play Bond in this film, who would it be? I always find it interesting thinking about this for each Bond film. Roger would have fitted this film well. That's a good question. I never thought about it, because this film seems to be so much linked with Sean Connery. But yeah, Roger Moore could have been really interesting in this film. I actually think I would have loved to have seen maybe Timothy Dalton in You Only Live Twice. That would have been so cool to see Timothy Dalton could Timothy Dalton as being in the Japanese undercover scenes? That would have been so. Anyway, and just be like, and like, I could imagine Timothy Dalton in the scenes with Kissy, and she's saying, that's your bed. I'm going to sleep over there, and Timothy Dalton's like, you're absolutely right. This is a mission, but we should stick to business. So I'm going to stay on this side of the room, and you're going to stay on that side of the room, and we're going to investigate the secret of this volcano business, or something like that. Oh, that was so cool. Timothy Dalton in You Only Live Twice, but... and I can imagine maybe Daniel Craig in that scene. Yeah, all right, I'm gonna sleep on this side. You're gonna sleep on that side. And as you're sleeping, I'm just gonna go out and do my own thing. I don't even care what you say. And that would have been Daniel Craig, I think, as James Bond, but in that situation. And what would Roger Moore have done? Roger Moore would be like, oh, look at these. These are oysters. Oh, these are really nice. I think I'm just going to enjoy these and have a good time. And then, oh, Tiger, here you are. Oh, what's going on? Oh, the Americans have upped their schedule of the rocket launch. Oh, I see. Well, then we better get going, shall we? They'll kill me if I do, but I'll kill you if you don't. All right, so that would have been really great. But anyway, yeah. That's an interesting moment. So going back to the film. Now, the other thing I did want to mention about You Only Live Twice is that it is, I think, and very rightly so, it's one of the most iconic Bond films because it has so much imagery that has carried through the franchise, and as many have rightly described here, like Irwin and Zyrother and other, it's also influenced Austin Powers, which I think in and of itself has helped to define the James Bond films. Austin Powers has done in a really brilliant way. And we have there's Blofeld and the scar and the bald head and the jacket and the hulking henchman and the countdown. I mean, the countdown was there from before, of course, but it's utilized here really nicely. And this plot in terms of rockets, and this is, as Damn Fool Spencer has pointed out, this is in a sense gonna be revisited by another Lewis Gilbert film, The Spy Who Loved Me, and the plot is pretty much, it's almost, I mean, I don't want to say the same because there are some differences, but the skeletal structure is there. And in fact, it will also continue in a sense anyway, with Moonraker. So we've got this kind of introduction of a plot. And right, it's not just any plot. This is the big one, according to M, right? This is the big one. That's why he's there himself, right? And so, right, so that's the situation with the sort of iconic status of You Only Live Twice in the context of the Bond universe. And so I think this kind of thing it can't be overstated enough because it really is such an important film, I think, in that aspect. And as Damn Fool Spencer and others have indicated, it's a beautifully photographed film in terms of the director of photography, and the way it looks is just romantic and lush and just heavily stylized and very effective. And the use of the widescreen and the use of the editing is very effective. I mean, there are some really quick shots. I mean, I mentioned it before when Bond is struggling with the key at the end and he explodes, and there's a quick shot of his face before it, to show his essential elation at what happened in terms of he was able to avert World War III. So there are some quick edits that I think are really effective, and of course, the final set pieces with the ninjas versus Spectre, that is just so cool. That's the stuff that you love as a kid and growing up, and then now that's the stuff that you're interested in. And of course, it's going to be absolutely politically incorrect all over the place. Of course, men come first, women come second, as Tiger says. Who says this now, right? Or Miyahama walking around. When she goes back, does anyone say, "Oh, thank you very much"? Tiger, I love you, Tiger, but come on. When Miyahama comes back after she's traversed a volcano, and she's gone down the Japanese countryside. She swam across, you know, water to get to Tiger Tanaka, who, and she's evaded a machine gun helicopter by herself. She goes back, and does Tiger say, "Oh, thank you so much for helping me and letting me know about this Spectre plot. Let me get you a coat." Or, why don't you get some, you must be cold. Oh, no, right? She still has her bikini on going, right? So, Tiger, I love you, but, oh, man, I really we have to think about what Tiger Tanaka's strategic thinking is, because there might be, it's either totally off the map, or it's really highly sophisticated, whatever it is, a three-dimensional chess. So it's one or the other, I think. I'm not sure what it is, to be perfectly honest, but Tetsuo Tama, he's the man. Oh, great stuff, great stuff. The character is great stuff. His strategic thinking, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah. And but as I say, this film holds so many iconic moments and so many images and styles and themes and the song and everything of that nature. So its importance it can't be overstated strongly enough. And so, do I think it's my favorite Bond film? That's a hard question. I would probably say, to answer that, whenever someone asks me what my favorite Bond film is of all time, You Only Live Twice never comes up for me. And I don't know why that is, to be perfectly honest, because it does hold a lot of the James Bond traits that have become so well beloved over the years. I guess it might be due to the fact that I do find that it does have certain issues of pacing for me. It does feel like when it lulls, it really lulls, and then it suddenly picks up rather randomly. And I think the whole thing with the undercover Japanese bit, I think that's an example. It sort of goes into a lull, and then suddenly Tiger runs up the stairs one evening, and he says, "Oh, the Americans have sped up their schedule. We've got to work fast." It's these sorts of twists like that. Also, the characters like Helga and Aki, they are introduced and then they are offed, which I always thought was a little bit of a weakness. But actually, the more I think about it, the more I realize that maybe that is part of the trait. It's supposed to add the element of danger to the mix, especially Aki. And as I mentioned, the death of Aki is probably the most emotionally gut-wrenching moment of the film for me. That's so sad. That is such a sad moment. She was such a great character, and to have her die in this way, she couldn't. If she had been awake, she would have been able to fend off her attacker. But no, she was in the most helpless situation, and it was so sad. And she's saying, I think the subtitles is saying like, she's trying to say something in her moment of dying, and then she can't even get out that last word. I think that makes it even more gut-wrenching for me. But yeah, that is such a great thing. Not great thing, but that is a really sad, poignant moment, and I think that's one of the things that it makes it great. But on the same time, I always thought, oh goodness, it would have been interesting to have her character carry through to the end of the film, which might have addressed certain issues as far as the Miyahama character is concerned. How we don't get her enough of her characterization. Hold on for 1 second while I switch to the iPhone mic here. There's a little bit of a battery issue. There we go. Sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm sorry, I switched off the pin mic, but I'll have this here. So just have it closer. Sorry about this. These are part of the things when it comes to live streaming. So sorry about the change in sound quality. I hope you can understand. Excuse me. But let's see. So continuing on, because it's almost, how long have we been going on here? It's almost 3 hours now. So all right, we'll go on for another maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. So I just had to change to the phone mic because my external mic, there's a certain issue with battery power. So I apologize for that. So anyway, let's continue on. So yes, so my point with that is that I thought that the Aki characterization was, uh, it I always go back and forth with that. It added a certain level of dramatic tension, her death scene, but at the same time, I always imagine what the film could have been like had she continued through the end of the film, because we got to know her so well, and she was such a great character, I thought. But oh well, that's the kind of thing. And as I say, I don't have anything against the Miyahama character, Kissy Suzuki. As I said, there could have been great moments. The moment when I said, "Yes, my parents are dead," I would have really been intrigued to get more about her character. What happened to her parents? How did she end up in this job? What's the situation there? But no, but I guess we needed more time. Maybe it could have been divided into two films, like You Only Live Twice, You Only Live Twice Part Two. So it could have been You Only Live Twice Part One, or You Only Live Twice Part Two. And You Only Live Twice Part Two could have been focusing on this Kissy Suzuki character. But I could have, maybe if it was like You Only Live Twice Part Two, it's like Part Two, so maybe people think it's multiplied by two. And so maybe it would be like you only live four times, I suppose. I don't know. But anyway. So let's see. So um, and yeah, Wolfgratz says there is a long and unfortunate tradition of them killing off the characters I care more about, male and female. Cooper Glover says, I wish the first female Bond lead in You Only Live Twice lived through the film. So that's Aki. And Cooper, let's see, Damn Fool says, she is the sacrificial lamb of the film, and the death scene is the most immediately arresting in the film. I agree. As you indicate, the films do have a sacrificial lamb character, and so she falls into that position, of course. And Cooper Glover follows up. However, maybe that needs to happen. And Andy, hello Andy, and you say best James Bond song. I think it's really great too. Yes, Wolfgratz. This is also true, Spencer, but it doesn't make me any happier about it. Interesting way of describing it. Ryan says what makes it worse is they kill off the much more interesting character Aki rather than Kissy. And Irwin says it doesn't help Kissy's introduced so late in the film. It's iconic like Honey Rider, or not iconic. It's like Honey Rider. Okay, yes, yes, and Damfool makes a good point. Absolutely, Aki is much more like the Kissy of the novel. Yes, that's an interesting point about the novel and and the and the film version. So. Okay, my friends. So let's start winding down because I notice it's almost 9. It's 8:45 here, so been going at this for about 2 hours and 40 some odd minutes here. So, you have a little bit of time left in terms of the live chat, and now I've been talking for almost 3 hours, so I'm getting a little bit hungry, and I haven't had any breakfast, so I need to have breakfast very soon, and so my stomach is beginning to grumble. So I'm actually eager for some toast right now. So, but before I get some toast, my stomach is going to be grumbling a little bit. So please forgive me for that. But let us close out here for let's see, if you have any more comments that you want to put into the live chat, you still have a little bit of time left, but as a closing statement on this film, as I mentioned before, one of the things that people have been curious about, thank you very much for expressing an interest in how I feel about the Japanese aspects of this film. As I've mentioned, I take no offense to that. I never feel offended when I watch this film. I laugh and I have a good time with it. And even with the undercover Japanese part, as ludicrous as it is, it's all part of the fun, and I look at it as fun, and I don't see it as being anything offensive. Is it wholly innocent? I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but actually, there are some other parts of that I think are actually much creepier. I mentioned the whole bit with James Bond really creeping out Kissy Suzuki, just like staring at her sleeping face at night. Oh, that's pretty creepy right there. But and I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, even if I were essentially, uh, uh, even if essentially, if I were there and Kissy Suzuki said, we're sleeping in separate beds. What are you talking about? I would still eat the oysters because I'd still be hungry. Those look really good, by the way. But anyway, uh, the point I wanted to bring up is that the film is, I think, in many ways part of its time, and there's no denying that. But that's one of the things you watch about films from the 1960s and James Bond films in particular. You watch it because it's part of its time, and it still has an edge to it. And the artistry of the film is undeniable. There are some beautiful camera techniques. The director of photography, as Spencer and others have pointed out, the music, as many others have pointed out, the situations, which are totally outlandish, totally just off the wall stuff. But that's why we're sitting here in 2020 and talking about it even now, because they are so memorable. They are so over the top that you can never shake them from your memory. And I mean, if Spectre were a more well-oiled machine, then they would have been able to take care of someone like James Bond, and you wouldn't have had the entertainment that is You Only Live Twice. It would have been just over in 5 seconds, and then that would have been it. Um, and so, but no, we had to have this kind of entertainment. Now, it operates, I think, really well too, because of the fact that it does come later in the series of Bond films. Don't forget, we do have I would describe it as being the ultra serious edge of Doctor No, and the very dark world of From Russia with Love, and then we get into the spectacle in Goldfinger, and then the world stakes that are at hand in Thunderball. And then we come here to You Only Live Twice. And so this is where the James Bond film franchise is headed in terms of the over the top outlandish aspects. And so in that respect, I would say, and I don't think this has been the case in this live chat as well. I think everyone is a real fan of this film, and I feel the love for this film from all of you. But whenever someone says, "Oh, You Only Live Twice" was just too over the top for me, I always think, well, it falls into that sweet spot of the films, because we've had essentially every other tone of spy thriller. And so, if you really want the down to earth, nitty gritty, serious stuff, you can go to Dr. No. If you want a Cold War spy, almost John Le Carre type of spy thriller, espionage film, you can go to From Russia with Love. If you want a hero versus villain super plot that is also very it has the James Bond type of traits, you go to Goldfinger. And if you want a a, a sort of globe trotting film that is about casinos and dressing well and cruising on the Riviera type of vibe. I mean, it's not the Riviera, I know, but that type of vibe, while still saving the world. You go to Thunderball, and then you come to You Only Live Twice, which is the film. This is the one that's in Japan, and so it's a completely different location, and it just I think it really goes in an outlandish direction, because it needs to, because this is where the Bond films are headed, and it does have similarities with past Bond films, but it does stand on its own because of these traits, as we described, I think, briefly, and as many of you have described, as all of you have described it so well in the live chat. This is where the Bond films are headed, or not headed, but this is the Bond film that is at once very similar, but also it stands on its own. And I think those outlandish set pieces, the over-the-top nature of the plots to kill Bond, Spectre, the introduction of Spectre, the huge crater thing, the rockets and all that, it's all part of having this film stand on its own 2 feet. And I think it makes for really great entertainment because of that. And it means, therefore, that we can look at it and see it while there are similar elements, it's not derivative, because it does feel also very creative. And we can pick it apart, of course, but that's part of the fun of a Bond film, is to pick it apart and to have fun with it. But it does feel also like a really good time, because, as I say, it does have elements that really help to make it stand apart and make it its own entity. We will see also how much this film has influenced Bond films to come. I think the comment has been made in the live chat before about other Bond films. Lewis Gilbert films, of course, come to mind, but also the idea of Spectre, the idea of Blofeld. I mean, this idea is actually carried over into the most recent film Spectre, right, in the James Bond franchise. And so this is a big deal. This is a really big deal, and I do want to say that this film, You Only Live Twice, I would suggest, along with a film like Goldfinger, is one of the most influential in terms of style and the James Bond look and the James Bond iconic imagery. This is one of the most influential films, I would gather, and we have also we have people like Austin Powers and Robbie Williams as well to thank for that. I think in a great way. As well as they are ambassadors of You Only Live Twice, as well as Sean Connery and company and crew. So this is all to say that this is an important film in the context of James Bond. It is a rip roaring entertainment, a lot of fun. It still is. I adore it to bits, and I adore its style, its substance. I enjoy having a go at it, but I think it's strong enough and it withholds that kind of scrutiny, because that's part of the fun, as I say. And there's nothing better than having fun, having a good time with a film, and that's certainly the case, I feel, with You Only Live Twice. And that's all I have to say about that. So let me now go to the comments in the live chat, and we will be on our way. So let's see. Um, all right, what a great. Okay. Um, let's see, Kevin. Thank you very much for joining in, Kevin. By the way, thank you. Uh, Thanks so much, my friends, for joining in. I know you're all busy, so thank you. Um, yeah, Cooper Glover says the music is the best part in the volcano set. Gamful says the film is an epic that runs just at 2 hours. You're right. It's actually right. That's right. The running time is right, just shy of 2 hours. That's really amazing to think about because there's so much packed in there. And I mean this in a positive way. It feels longer than 2 hours, does it not? And as I say, I don't mean because it's boring. I think because it's just so much stuffed in there. That's a really good point, Spencer. Um, and this is also the start of the decline of the spy craze Bond spawn. Yes, that's true. And we realize that I mean, there's always this interesting change of course with Bond films when it reaches this point of overload. We see the change of course, and that usually also is accompanied by a change of the actor. So of course we'll see the change of course happen with On Her Majesty's Secret Service to come, and even with Moonraker in the Roger Moore era, we'll see a change of course into the John Glenn films, of course. And I would say also the same thing happened with Die Another Day into Casino Royale. Let's see. Um, um, Ryan Harding says, similarly to Thunderball, I feel like You Only Live Twice would have been better with about 10 minutes cut out. It feels a bit bloated. Oh, that's an interesting point. I wonder though what 10 minutes would have been cut out. I'm not sure. That's interesting. Maybe a little bit less of the ninja school. I'm not sure, but oh well. Um, and let's see. Um, Although I do love the ninja part. I really love that part. Um, yeah, Ryan Harding says, although I also do love it because it's the last solid Connery Bond film. Well, we will get to Diamonds Are Forever, although there are some peculiar circumstances with that. So yeah, so that's definitely the case. Um, let's see. Um, all right, and yes. Speaking of Never Say Never Again, yes, that is on the table. I'm not sure when, but it is on the table. Um, right. There's a lot to say about that film. Algernon and all that. Yeah, not perfected yet. Ugh. Yes. Um, That's another great score. I love. I love the score for Never Say Never Again. I know it sometimes gets a bad knock, but I love the score, like the whole thing with the da 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 da. It's great. I can't wait to talk about Never Say Never Again. But um, and that was that, and that's pretty risque stuff there, in terms of some of the romantic scenes in that film with the boat rocking and all that's wow, yeah. Anyway, and anyway, so that's let's talk about it. Let's see. Um, uh, Sink the Bounty. Is there any Japanese film similar to James Bond? Oh gosh, well, there's so many. We can talk. Man, maybe I should try a separate video about that. That's a great question. Um, Let's see. Erwin says, "Will there be another instant poll for the next film to discuss?" That's my next question, my friend. Let's see. What's the next film you want to talk about for the live stream? Mention some titles, and we'll try to make a decision. It's not a perfect democratic vote decision, so it's just we'll see where the general trend is, and I'll try to make a decision based on that. So, my friends who are still left, what film do you want to talk about in the next live stream? Mention some titles right now, and we'll make a decision before we leave today. Ryan says I would have cut the marriage scene out. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I know it's meant to be comic, but man, I feel oh those other brides in that in that scene, they really uh, they're not treated pretty well at all. But anyway, yeah, Damn Fool says you only live twice at being under 2 hours. Being at under 2 hours is because Peter Hunt came back and did the editing. Yeah, Peter Hunt's great. That first fight in the Osado building at night, that is pure Peter Hunt right there on the sped up footage and the sounds. That's almost like From Russia with Love, Orient Express territory. Let's see. Zyrother says the next one should be Moonraker. That might be an interesting one. And Damfool says, "Never Say Never Again was your first film specific stream." Interesting, interesting. Cooper Glover says, "Man with the Golden Gun" or "Spy Who Loved Me." Um, James Bond Radio skewered it recently. Which one? Moonraker. I don't know. I love James Bond Radio, by the way. Oh my goodness, I would love to interview the people at James Bond Radio. Just to pick their brains and to see, just I love James Bond Radio so much. Um, and let's see. Irwin says, "I'd love either Man with a Golden Gun or Moonraker." Interesting, interesting. Let's see. Ryan Harding, the most recent episode of James Bond. So that was what Die Another Day, right? I know they have a pretty interesting view of Die Another Day. So, um, yeah, yeah. So interesting stuff. So, all right, my friends. So it's 9 a.m. here. What films you want to talk about? I'm pretty much up for anything. So I know Man with the Golden Gun has been mentioned. Spy Who Loved Me has been mentioned. Moonraker has been mentioned. Nothing else I think has come up. Is there any other title that you'd like to talk about? Uh, you've got a couple more minutes here, so if you want to mention any titles, let me know. Um, and we will go from there. Anything? Bueller? Bueller? Let's see. Skyfall. Oh, interesting. Andy says Skyfall. I love it so much. Skyfall would be an interesting one. Although I, I, I think, and maybe I should have gone chronologically, but I would like to talk about Quantum of Solace first before I talk about Skyfall, because I do think there's an interesting trajectory that goes through there. Ryan Harding, although yeah, I think I'd love to talk about Skyfall though. Yeah. Um, and like what is it? Skyfall and Heineken. Yeah. Let's see. Gosh. Ryan says From Russia with Love. Um, Damful says, I think it would be interesting to do nice discussions on the films unfairly considered black sheep by most. I would say, right, A View to a Kill or Casino Royale, 67. I'd love to talk about Casino Royale. I'd love to talk about A View to a Kill. Um, I love A View to a Kill. I absolutely love A View to a Kill. And to be perfectly honest, I never understood why A View to a Kill was so skewered as it essentially is by a lot of people. I mean, I kind of get it, but I love that film so much. I really do. And Moonraker too. I think that's also another one. I love Moonraker. And in fact, an interesting thing. I think my love of Moonraker has helped me in an interesting way to better appreciate Die Another Day. And I'd love to be able to try to talk about that one as well. Die Another Day. I know that's another one that gets a lot of interesting attention. Um, uh, there's that. There's License to Kill, but I want to save that for because I realize if we talk about License to Kill, then that's it for Timothy Dalton. I love Timothy Dalton so much. I kind of want to savor the Timothy Daltonness for a little bit more. Uh, so yeah. Uh, uh, the uh, Let's see. Okay, occasional feel good. Hello, it says you say you should do a John Carpenter live stream series, especially with Halloween looking around. Oh, thank you for the suggestion. Well, that's really interesting. Um, Moonraker, and Die Another Day. Yeah, yeah. So, um, oh my goodness, this is. So, what films do we do next? This is, I can't leave without making a decision. Uh, so okay, so let's do this. I love Skyfall, but let's say okay, let's talk about Quantum of Solace first before we talk about Skyfall. So let's save those Daniel Craig films for another day. Okay, but really want to talk about those. Okay, so then let's save Timothy Dalton for another day because I do want to savor Timothy Dalton as much as I can. I don't, it's not, I don't want to, right, I don't want to say a farewell to arms quite yet, so let's save that until much later because I love License to Kill. uh right. And a nice honeymoon, right? So I love License to Kill so much. But okay, so now what does that leave? That leaves, I think we've spoken about we've of course we've talked about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and so there's no more George Lazenby films we can talk about. We've just talked about a Connery film, so I think I'd like to talk about another Bond. So that leaves Pierce or Roger. So there's been mentioning of Die Another Day. I'm okay with that. There's also mention, but although maybe since our dear friends at James Bond Radio, I think have just talked about Die Another Day, maybe let's maybe to respect them, although they are much bigger than I, in terms of their audience and their reach. Those James Bond JBR, that's a huge. Oh, those. They're so great. So, to respect them, let's maybe hold off on Die Another Day, and give. Let's have a little bit of space. And so that leaves maybe we can have another Pierce film, Tomorrow Never Dies, or the world is not enough. I'm so bad with my Pierce impression. I'm so sorry. I can only do the the chin. But or I mentioned it in Goldeneye with the with this, but uh, so it's a Pierce film that's not Die Another Day or a Roger film. So what do you think? Goldeneye. We've done Goldeneye. So let's see. That was last time. Um, and uh, let's see. Um, Moonraker. I'd like parts would make a good discussion. Moonraker. Kubrick says, "I'm Kubrick. Are we getting Moonraker votes? Seems like Moonraker would be a good choice. Moonraker. All right. So, shall we say Moonraker? All right. Want to do Moonraker next? I'd love to do Moonraker. I love Moonraker. I absolutely love Moonraker. I think Moonraker is an all-time classic. I you know I love everything about it, even the double take pigeon. I love it, and I love the guy. I love the guy in Venice, and he's just going like I love that stuff. That's just and right, because if you're gonna make a getaway like that, you might as well do it in style. And so I always I like those moments, and I would like there's some many mysteries about the film. Is the guy's name Cha or Chang, right? That's a great mystery, and I love his face. I love his. I'm gonna spoil Moonraker now. So anyone who doesn't want to get spoiled by Moonraker, thank you so much for joining. I really, thank you so much, and we will do Moonraker next. And so I will make an announcement as to when that will be. So thank you so much. I will be spoiling a little bit of Moonraker in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Moonraker 1, liftoff. All right. So is it Chang or Cha? And I love his face when he is unable to kill Bond in the spinning thing there. And he's so sad, right? And you want to give him a hug and just want to pat him on the back, say it's okay, don't worry about it, you'll do better next time, and he really tried his best, which is probably why he really tried to go at it with with his final attack on Bond. So probably a bit too much. He probably was overcompensating because he was unable to kill Bond the first time. Uh, that's wonderful, and of course the return of Jaws, and the great thing about Jaws and of course the wonderful opening credits and the parachute, and he falls into the circus tent and everything like that, which makes me wonder. There's that whole thing with I'm gonna like Octopussy as well, and Octopussy and the whole thing with the circus tent and the bomb and everything like that. And it was so suspenseful, and I always thought, it probably would have been just as effective if instead of Bond doing that thing, what if at just the right moment Jaws fell through and was able to land on the bomb, and it would have been all satisfied, or maybe it would have exploded and everything would have been it would have been terrible. But we know Jaws is invincible, so maybe he would have survived, and maybe he could have went off and done his own little series. Jaws versus Kamal Khan. Oh, that would have been really cool at the end of Octopussy. Jaws fighting Kamal Khan and Gobinda. Oh wow, Jaws versus Gobinda. Anyway, but yeah. So what was it? Moonraker. So Moonraker is such a classic, and I everything about it I love. I love every single thing about that film, and it has some of the most effective dialogue. Um Look after Mr. Bond, see that some harm comes to him. I even love the bits where you just see Drax playing the piano, and he even is just playing the piano in such an oozingly villainous way. The Chopin. Oh, it's just so great. And um, just the little things like Jaws, expel them. He doesn't say kill them. He says expel them. You obey me. Expel them. So, right. What better way to try to kill off your adversaries than say expel them? And I always thought, I would hate for Drax to be a schoolmaster, because I would think if Drax were like the principal of a school, he would just be like expel them, expel them, expel them all the time, and just be off the hook. But anyway, yeah, so let's do Moonraker. So let's do Moonraker. I love that film to bits, and I look forward to that conversation. And so that would be great. So that Moonraker is it. Um, yeah, sad henchman is sad. Yes. Uh, 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 thank you for saving my life. And there's some really great character moments too. Like she never gets like Manuela. I think her character is really, really quite quite lovely, and there's some nice uh, real scary moments between her and Jaws, and uh, the 7 Up, and the dancing, and the cable car, and the uh, uh, um, um, uh, Magnificent Seven, and the all the references to like closing just everything, like space and everything like this. So just all this stuff is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and it does have some serious moments too, right? So Spencer, you do point it out, um, and oh yes, 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 he's on his last leg, sir. um, any higher, Mr. Bond, and my ears will pop. Yes. Um, yeah. Very interesting stuff. So yes, Moonraker it is. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yes. Um, Speaking about Corinne Dufour, who's another great character. There's that whole thing about, I never learned to read. We'll talk about that. I have certain thoughts about that. Yeah. Uh, and villainous Wolf. Yeah. Um, yeah. Vassar. Yes. Play it again, Sam. Although, if we think about, and again, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but here's just a little thing about Moonraker. That whole thing with that building where Bond and we'll call him Cha. Bond and Cha are fighting, and he throws Cha through the window there, and then he falls into the piano. That doesn't make sense, right, from an architectural point of view, because it implies two levels, right? One above the other. But if we see the architectural design of the building from the exterior, the second story doesn't have anything underneath. Am I remembering that correctly? So therefore, the architecture doesn't make sense. But oh well. Well, if I hope I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. And uh, 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 that's great. It's great, and I love the song, the Shirley Bassey song. It's a the ode to Moonraker, just like the Moonraker knows. And for the life of me, I never could understand what that meant, what the song lyric meant. What does it mean about the Moonraker? So what is, you love me, Moonraker. So what does that mean? I have no idea, and that's one of the great glories of the film, right? And the song. What does the lyric mean? If you think about other lyrics of James Bond film songs, I mean, there are a lot that don't make sense, like uh I guess like one that I think, like the Living Daylights, I don't think makes a lot of sense. um uh View to a Kill doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think Moonraker is probably the most nonsensical of the lyrics, but I think that's what makes it really, really interesting. Yeah. It's we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. um and it is very different from the novel, you're right, Ryan. um Yeah, very, very different indeed. And let's see, the song makes no sense whatsoever, Irwin. But yeah, I'll have to really listen to it carefully. Let's do a deep dive into the lyrics of Moonraker and see if there's actually some hidden meaning. Um, I mean, it could be something like one of my favorite lyrics is Goldfinger. Such a cold finger. Which is, I mean, pretty risque lyric if you think about it. But uh, uh, yeah, let's think about Moonrakers and the lyrics. So, and okay, so Spencer says, I've always looked at it as a metaphor for dreams and for searching for the unobtainable happiness or fulfillment in life. It's my favorite of the Bassey songs, actually, so underrated. So the Moonraker equals dreams and unfulfillment. That's interesting. So okay, so I mean, if we take the language Moonraker, so the idea of the moon is there, and Raker, maybe it's the idea of exploration or discovery, perhaps. So discovery or explanation linked with the moon, which is also linked with fantasy and dreams. Okay, I can see that, Spencer. Thank you, fantastic. Um, oh, and yeah, don't get me wrong. I love the song. I love the song. I love the little, like the little, like the peep beep beep, that little thing that John Barry does, which is almost like an electronic sounding type of thing, which is really lovely. Um, and yeah, that's great stuff. So, um, yeah. Yeah, his search for a dream of I search for love, for someone to have and hold. I see your smile in a thousand. What is in a thousand dreams? Right. Felt your touch. Right. In a thousand dreams. Felt. Am I right? Felt your touch, and it always seems you love me. You love me. So yes. So it is this idea of yearning. Um, and yeah, that's great. Well done. Well done, Spencer. You are fantastic. So thank you very much. We will end in a minute. So I want to say thank you very much, my dear friends. We will do Moonraker next. I will make the announcement shortly when I can. Probably, I don't know. Don't hold me to this. Maybe 2 weeks from now, and I don't know. We'll see, and we'll go from there. I want to thank uh, Damnful Idealistic Crusader and Cooper Glover 1972 for being great mods. Thank you so much. Anyone else, if you want to be a moderator, please just drop me a line. Just let me know, and I'd be very happy. You just let me know, and I'd be very happy to do so. It always helps me out, and you get a little blue spanner next to your name. So that's always. I wish I had a blue spanner next to my name. Uh, but so if you're interested in that, let me know. If not, that's okay as well. There's I don't think it involves any work other than just letting me know. So you can let me know anytime. Other than that, my friends, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world. And so we will see each other. Next time. Yes. I'm trying to think of a good way to end this. Give me another minute, and I'll try to think of a good way to end this. So the film will be Moonraker. I can't think of a good way to end this. I was thinking of a quote, but it just escaped me. So, uh, you know, uh, maybe I'll end the way that I'll end in a way similar to Henderson in You Only Live Twice, just as he's about to be assassinated. So I'll just end it like that. So thank you very much, my dear friends, for all that you've done during this live chat. And so the next one will be Moonraker, and I'll let you know about the schedule. So until then, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. So thank you so much, and I hope to. Da, 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 da. All right, that's it. All right. So that's my cue to go. So thank you very much, my friends, and peace. Cheers.